There we go. I'm just gonna hang out and play Powerwash Simulator for a bit. I don't feel like going over the news right now. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of go back and forth and talk about whatever. I like these more casual streams and hangouts. I want to see how it does. Sometimes I just want to hang out and play a game or something. How's it going? There's a lot of kind of chaos in the news right now, and typically it sorts out a little bit at the end of the day. I'm really nervous about whether or not the one new member to Congress will be. Hey, thanks. We just started shooting. Yeah. I'm curious if the House representative will actually be sworn in, even though she was elected in like September, and they've stalled because she's going to vote to release the Epstein files. So now already Democrats are releasing emails that they just have, I guess, about the Epstein files, and it's a bad look. And I'm curious to see more and how that's going to go. But I'm worried they're going to find some excuse to not swear in this duly elected representative even longer. And that's supposed to happen at 4 p.m. So I'm kind of hanging out until then. Yeah, the emails are disgusting. Yeah, but honestly, not surprising to me. Um, if anyone is still surprised by that stuff, like you've been living under a rock. Shockingly weird, creepy, sexist, pedophilic con man is a weird, sexist, creepy, pedophilic con man. And there's a lot of chaos, can't control. The Senate Democrats also have been struggling unsuccessfully to like get a message together, and hopefully they do, but that's going to take some time. So, in the meantime, we're just going to play Power Wash Simulator. And I'm curious if over the course of the day, people are going to gradually get their shit together. Um, I think Senate Democrats have kind of realized they've completely fumbled their messaging and a shutdown exit strategy, such that they're kind of grateful to just fall back on the Epstein files because of this clear and more relatable thread. And we'll give them that. So we'll be talking about those emails today. Um, but yeah, it's it's confusing. So we kind of have to like. I'm doing this as a little amuse bouche, a little palate cleanser between the news cycles. Because a lot of nonsense is happening right now. Yeah, like there's no defense for this. That's the thing. And it's like, I don't know, it's not surprising to anyone that like all this bad stuff happens to anyone who's been paying attention on the left. And so this only is like a great betrayal, career tanking controversy, only because Republicans and Donald Trump specifically, I guess pulling from his own experience, was like, hey, there's a bunch of elite pedophiles who are running things and they protect each other and conspire. And they started the whole QAnon shit. And shockingly, um, thank you, Every. Yeah, it's been a rough week. Um, my mom died last week, and I have to go to a funeral on Friday, so I'm kind of a mess and taking some time off. So that's when I've been able to stream and stuff, and I like it. I'm gonna keep that up. It's been a really nice like distraction, I guess. Yeah, power washing a car will strip the paint. True. This game has like different types of levels. All the vehicles are kind of a pain in the butt because getting under the wheel wells and stuff is bad. But this is a game I play sometimes when I just want to think about stuff or like listen to podcasts or whatever. It's nice. Um, yeah. So in like the new stuff, I don't know. It's kind of weird how this is the line. There's been so much like awful stuff, but if this is the line, okay, any line is worth it. I think the hideous corruption is really bad. All the crypto scams are really bad. All of the backdoor deals with United Arab Emirates are bad. but acting like it's a surprise that Donald Trump is friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, if that's what it takes. Yeah, sure. I have a very cynical view of Republicans at this point. Do you think the new stuff will offend anyone in the movement? That's the weird thing. I think it will, and it's specifically because I come from a design background, and I've like written papers and done studies and like run lots of projects. The thing I can attest to in my personal experience, as well as I've literally seen studies on this, and it was mainly focused on apps and things like that. But like, how do you review an app, right? Do you think it's good or bad? And they found that a stronger predictor, whether it's like what bigger than the quality of something, or like how good the features are, was if the software, whatever it was, met people's expectations of what it was. Uh, Thank you for subscribing, Nick Unicorn. Um, it was, so it was about meeting expectations, right? So like, if you read the description of an app on like an app store page and then you download it and it does what you think it does, you'll be happy with it. Even if it's bad, you like know what you're getting and you don't mind. Whereas if it's not what you thought it was, that disappointment is the outweighing factor by far. It can be really good. And it seems like will sink lots of time and money to be like, no, it needs to be good, but they still get negative feedback and they're like, why is this? And it's because how you pitched it and described it and what people thought it was going to be is different than that. And that's like a crushing disappointment that they can't overcome no matter what. Um, and so the problem right now is that Donald Trump is not a good problem solver. Hi. But Donald Trump is a great salesman and a great diagnostician. So he was great at like seeing people's pain and promising stuff. Um, and there was this kind of pretense created and fueled by QAnon, especially through Biden years as like hope of this like, oh, there's like an elite ring of pedophiles who are controlling stuff, but we're going to drain the swamp and stop them. And this has been like the narrative of like the Trumpist populism since 2015. And that's what there's big buy-in to. And it's come out repeatedly because they keep getting caught for like, their own scandals and shit. Even a lot of Trump voters, it turns out, are actually pedophiles personally, and they get charged with stuff. But there's some kind of weird, I guess, like downstream of Christian ethics built into America that they think that like by themselves doing good things and thinking they're like part of this badass like movement, we're going to drain the swamp and stop the pedophiles and like putting themselves in the heroes of the story, they think they can kind of redeem themselves, even in spite of the bad stuff they do. That's why like the right like obsessively talks about pedophiles all the time as like bad guys, even though like no one's defending pedophiles normally. I mean, Mike Johnson is now, I guess. But like no one's on the other side of this issue, and it's weird that like this is their whole thing because no one else even thinks about this. It's not like morally debatable. It's obvious that like pedophiles are bad. Like this is not, an epic political war, and it's cringe that they keep like pretending like it has to be or it is. Like, why is this on your mind so much? It's because they're personally guilty of it. Um, and they've kind of managed to redeem their themselves despite their horrible flaws in their own eyes by like tying their own identity to like we're the ones stopping the pedophiles as like so like they've sunk their own moral redemption into this concept in this like grand narrative. Um, and I think some of them have earnestly bought into this idea that like Trump is going to save them and drain the swamp. And it's really sad because now you have all these people who like built literally their entire social identity and their whole social networks on this theme. And that's why this feels like a betrayal because that's specifically what there is buy-in to. And that's why like it's not even, I mean, it's fucking evil. He's done like other very evil shit that's affected a lot of people. Um, like I don't know how many victims Epstein had that Trump helped get. There's been other, massive fucking corruption, Trump's full complicity and encouragement of the Palestinian genocide. There's a lot of awful shit that might even by the numbers do more harm as fucked up as it is. Like that's how bad a guy he is. Like, it's so long. Like I mean, there's countless fucking sins of Donald Trump. But this is weirdly sticking because this is the one that Trump sold them on being on the other side of. And that's why this feels like a betrayal. And that's why this one seems to have more sticking power than anything else. Because this is the thing Republicans were thought they were buying to stop, which is weird. And like, yeah, like so it's this weird, like it's just it feels like deeply personal to conservatives in a way that seems to confound like a lot. But for some reason, this is the one thing they care about, and they don't care about anything else. How many other people have been hurt? And I mean, to talk to these people who are hurt, but like I don't know. This is like for some reason the only thing that can break through the noise around Donald Trump. So I mean, you know, he did awful shit. It's gonna come out. He should be held accountable for it. I'm disappointed in humanity that like they didn't realize that this was like all kind of not a secret this entire time, and that he's done so much other awful shit like ICE, like but whatever. If this is what it takes. This is what it takes. And I think we all have to, I guess, kind of politely pretend to be surprised with them on their behalf, because it's the only way we're getting out of this. This is the only, I think, way they can morally denounce this cult and step back from this cult without like sacrificing the social identity they've built. Because now this is a way for Trump supporters to back out of supporting Donald Trump rather than admitting they were like wrong on everything we say, but to just like be like, no, I've always been anti-pedophile, and that's why I can now denounce this. Well, like saving face. And I think that's like why there's a lot of people who want to leave this movement because they realize they've gotten fucked financially, but they still need some kind of like self-socially permissible out. I think it's bizarre. It's psychologically bizarre. Yeah, like this is how you deal with narcissists. Yeah. Um. Uh. Look, there's a lot of genocides going on. Okay, I don't know about the Nigerian situation specifically. I'm a little disappointed in the, I think, clearly like Russian bot fed and Groyper fed obsession with like Palestine specifically, while like leftist spaces have continued to ignore the wide swath of global genocides and war crimes. And to me, it speaks to like a weird objectification of this like concept of a politically like and historically illiterate like perfect, innocent Uwu victim, brown people, as justification for them continuing to ignore the suffering of Black and brown people all over the world and in their own communities. There's a weird kind of obsession with moralizing things in a way that minimizes their own civic duty, and also action. But it's also, I think it's weird too, like, I don't know. Uh, oh, why would it be beneficial for DC and Puerto Rico to have statehood? Um, Honestly, it comes down to like no taxation without representation, right? DC is right outside the White House. DC does not have a say in the federal government in the same way. They have like a mayor, but that's it. And when there's like, Trump deciding he's going to do like ICE raids and through DC, it's sending the National Guard to like DC. There's like troops in the streets of DC. DC doesn't really have any say against that, right? And so mayor's kind of like, yeah, great. And like, I don't know. DC also has problems, like even getting like money to do stuff. Washington, DC, I believe has the worst education in the country, which is shocking, right? Because what DC is it's a lot of like kind of mostly white, like business class people who usually live in like Maryland or Virginia and then commute there on the weekdays. And then you have a local population of DC, which is like very black, very hardworking, and very poor. And like their schools, like they throw money at it, but there's not like an actual localized understanding and respect of DC issues, which is why like they can be right there outside the White House and completely flounder on things like crime and education because they don't have like people, local representatives in power in the same way who can fight for them and understand their issues and like get support for their issues. Um, and I think that's like a really bad example. I think leading by example is important, especially like in the capital of what should be the kind of leader of the free world country. I think it's a great opportunity to do good and have the best stuff. And it's kind of pathetic that like they don't have a say right there. Also, lots of people who do kind of, like even communities sometimes, they're going to be very politically like informed probably because it affects their daily lives. Like Northern Virginia, Maryland, DC, these are all places that like what happens in federal government matters. It affects their culture a lot and they're politically responsive. And I think there's like bipartisan agreement. Congress has lots of problems on kind of being in touch and responding to stuff. And I think if like literally the locals had like more say to be like, no, like these are the politicians who are like in our communities because they all like show up at least sometime of the year into DC and they're like big assholes and like these federal layoffs affect people. Having like the voices of the communities where everyone's getting federally laid off, like have a say, I think is important and will make a big difference. Like as we saw at the election of like Spanberger, who had a like a crazy opposition, but Spanberger was like a little kind of a little boring, like kind of by design, a little milquetoast. But we saw this huge passionate voter turnout in the Virginia governorship election because there's that's where a lot of the federal workers are, who are like laid off and they're fucking pissed, rightfully, and they have a right to be pissed. I'd be pissed if I were them. And that's kind of how they have to express it. And I think, you know, like DC especially, I would assume a lot of people who work in DC, ideally, if they can, would want to live in DC and be close to work. Um, and they should really have a say there. I think, you know, when it comes to, hey, should we fire a bunch of federal workers? You would have a way truer and honest debate on that if people from DC could be in those conversations and then say, hell no. Um, you know, it'd be like if there's a city where like we made all our cars and then there's new legislation that's like, hey, should we like outlaw this type of car? I think the people who make the cars, like it would decimate the whole city's economy and they should probably be involved in the conversation. What am I missing here? Windscreen. Hmm. Oh yeah, so like there's Protestant Christianity that does tell people they'll be saved solely on whether or not they accept Jesus, which is yeah, there's like a weird thing. This is the thing with Calvinism. There's like complicated Christian histories in the US that aren't actually Christian at all. But it's like cultural to the point that it can't be ignored. And a lot of I think white leftists especially, when they're talking about like class conscious values or whatever. And yes, there's like racism involved, but they can't explain a lot of conservatism because it's built in this kind of like just world fallacy, moralistic ethos of things. Where literally even the concept of like predestination, of like there isn't free will, it's just it's already decided whether you're going to be in heaven or not, weirdly has spawned the opposite, where like people will specifically work harder and go out of their way to work harder because they think, oh, if I have to get to heaven by the end, and that's just an already predetermined description of my life, I am therefore fated to, I must have lived a good life by the end of it, to get there, which is kind of strange and kind of funny. Um, so you get this like weird kind of pathological American obsession with like I desperately need to work hard for everything. I am not a lawyer, but my partner is. So if there's some like legal declarations in our shared office at home, that is why. And I talked to her about politics and law and stuff. I have a background in psychology and design, working apps and games and things. Uh, and it's weird too. Also, heuristics and brand equity, I think, is super important. In our heads, we like shortcut ideas with things and like reputations and feelings, and this is super important. Like Trump brought this idea of like, oh, I can run the country like a business. I'm good at business. He's not actually good at business, but he spent a lot, like a lifetime in marketing and pop culture, making that his brand and this like vibe he can tap into. And that's super duper important. What's important to understand for better and for worse, it's just for worse, let's be honest. Americans use Christian to shortcut good person. And there's like the one person going viral on TikTok this week because in the wake of like the shutdown and like cuts to SNAP and like you know bottom line food support, um uh she's been calling a bunch of churches and temples and mosques and stuff and see and to see who actually helps her. And that's one of the few stories that's penetrated conservative social media spaces, is because they are shocked to learn that a lot of Christian churches are not helping this woman who's calling their church and saying, hypothetically, "Hey, I have a hungry baby. Can you help?" Um, Hopefully, it's a wake-up call for a lot of people, and that's why I think another reason why like a lot of even like leftist movements and candidates like Bernie Sanders and stuff have failed to actually reach like the working class they claim to represent, because they're not recognizing and resonating with those stated values. I think someone like Andy Bashir could be way more effective at, it's not socialism, it's Jesusism, and connecting with those values. Uh, but yeah, it's just this weird kind of like, I don't know, American exceptionalism tied into all this like elitism. It's culturally, the US is a very strange place. It's too big to be one place. Thank you. Yeah, I think in like weird ways. And I'm not religious, but like I feel like especially like anyone who wants progress is kidding themselves if we think we can take a purely secularist approach to like especially convincing and reaching lots of people. Because Trump has been made into a weird, bizarro, Christ-like figure. Um, Even if you look at the Bible, and I like to read, I've read a lot of holy books and stuff. I like to understand all that stuff. Um, Trump free like amazingly fits the description of an antichrist. Um, but like in this weird, I don't know, Christian in name Americanist faith, where hard work and capitalism is kind of glorified. Donald Trump is actually their Christ-like figure, and it makes sense. This avatar of like hard work will be rewarded. So let's just pick someone who is clearly rewarded as this avatar of like what hard work looks like and what we will all be if we support him. Was a very grand narrative that was tapped into. But when it, I mean, actually, he's just a narcissist with a penchant for marketing and messaging. And when it comes to actually, can you do something for affordability? He recognizes that's what he needs to say. And what will look good most intuitively, marketing wise, and this is why what he said this week was, oh, let's just give them money. Let's just give them a check with my name on it. And he doesn't understand that's not how to run an economy. That's not actually how things work. And that will cause horrific hyperinflation. And also, there's not even enough money to do that. Um, I am playing Powerwash Simulator 2. I've not played the first one. I found this, I like share Steam libraries with some friends. One of them had it. I'm like, ooh, perfect. This is the perfect, like, listening to podcasts kind of game. I like completionism as an engagement type. I just thought I'd do this and hang out and talk with chat. Mexico has no hope. What's going on in Mexico right now? I thought Mexico's a pretty good president right now, but also, like, they're in danger just by being our neighbors because we're, like, kind of like freak on the block. I like to think I'm not super partisan, but it kind of becomes super partisan. If the Republican Party was all like John McCain's, I think there could be a reasonable discussion there. But I think what needs to happen at this rate is that the Democratic Party needs to make the Republican Party go extinct, and then right after split into a kind of bipartisan divide between like establishment moderates and progressives. The Democratic Party is a very clearly not actually one party Big Ten right now, just kind of out of necessity because of the pure cold capture by Donald Trump, who is not long for this world. The level where you clean up after January 6th, that's insane. Is that a real thing? Is that in the first game? I would love to do that. I can't tell if it's a joke or not, because that sounds amazing. I really, really want to see that. Or that Viscera cleanup detail. That should be a real thing, though. Holy, like one of these games, lots of indie game developers are very like irreverent. I could totally see that happening. I'm sorry, I don't know much about Mexican politics right now. Um, Unfortunately, I don't live in a country as good as Mexico. I live in a country where our corrupt president is building massive palace ballrooms and then telling the people to choose between food or medicine. But the real answer is neither. We get neither food nor medicine. The United States has been on a downside by every metric. One thing, oh my gosh, I'd love to talk about. I want to see if I can find this actually. Sorry, we're going to switch to politics. Uh, Gavin Newsom said a few days ago there was like some upcoming global like climate conference, and the U.S. all of the U.S. federal officials aren't going, and like no, we're not. We don't even care about that. We're not going to go. Gavin Newsom said, "I'll go," and he actually did. They're like, Gavin Newsom is the real leader of America. Is not just a meme anymore. He's actually just fucking doing it. He's already won the presidency. And this is the weird thing about like power and leadership, right? Gavin Newsom, is he the best candidate? Probably not. But he's just like volunteering and just doing the job. And he's just the de facto president just by virtue of like he saw an empty chair and he took it. I want to look up the video of like Gavin Newsom at climate uh, conference. It's insane. Like he's just repping the US there because he realized no one else was going. I mean, the balls on that man. Like, and the more I consider it, I'm like, okay, is there a better candidate? Is there a better play? Is better like campaign strategy than Gavin Newsom? Maybe, but he's just de facto in charge, right? It's wild. Let's see. Can I find a video of this? But Gavin Newsom, I've never seen anyone just like walk into this position of power before. Tonight, Governor Gavin Newsom. Okay. All right, I found a thing. Let's see. I don't know if that. Aha, there we go. Newsom is keeping busy overseas in Brazil, attending COP30, the United Nations 30th Annual Climate Change Conference.
Yeah, President Trump is not there. Instead, a U.S. delegation of more than 100 governors, mayors, and other state and local officials are attending.
Today, Newsom was quick to criticize the president's absence, saying while it's a disgrace President Trump has, quote, abandoned the clean energy space, California is stepping into the international spotlight, especially. This is bizarre. This is so weird to me. But this is what I guess the country is now. We have such like federal absence of leadership. He just started doing it. This was literally like a plot line on The Office when The Office got bad. Remember, this wasn't a bus character. So you could just like, it's a free chair. And staying competitive with China. So I don't know, like, assuming we're probably unlikely to have free and fair elections in 2028. Luckily, we also have a presumed president anyway, and it's not a Republican. Like the vibes are free real estate, and he just took it. Good
California
for him.
has two things: a reliable partner in relationship to this space.
So there's a global climate conference, and because the entire Trump administration just doesn't care about environmentalism and didn't even bother to send the president or even a representative, Gavin Newsom just went. Gavin Newsom just showed up, which is cool because on the global stage, like America has a problem where because we're so flip-floppy, it's hard to really trust or care about the US anymore, increasingly. Which is funny as fuck. Because like the US doesn't care. Like, oh whatever, this person sucks, you'll have a new one in a few years anyway. Gavin Newsom's realized that and he just started showing up. So now like the world stage is just gonna presume he's the leader because like no one else is.
I cannot say that for the United States of America, particularly as it relates to the current occupant in the White House. Quite the contrary. This is not about electric power. This is about economic power. And we in the state of California are not going to cede that race to China. We're going to compete.
Today, Newsom also signed a memorandum of understanding to collaborate on wildfire prevention and response. As far as his political future, yesterday he said this.
The most important office, Bray and I said, is office of citizen, active, not inert citizenship. So that's a gift to go back. But we'll see what the hell happens. I've been very animated by, as you can tell, by what's going on in my country.
Over the next few days, the governor will continue to meet with world leaders in Brazil about global clean energy options.
Like, this is mind-blowing, right? New campaign strat just dropped. Just start being the president now, because you can. So everything that falls through the cracks, every issue we should be talking about, every message, people have been begging like congressional Democrats to have kind of a shadow government, like have, which is, I mean, a real thing. It's a scary 10 word. It's a real thing. It's just, oh, they have a press briefing room. The opposition party should have a press briefing room, and frankly, they should, and just start messaging like that. But Gavin Newsom has just. Gavin Newsom's just the president already, and honestly, it's a good look for him, and it's a natural fit. And we're talking about like, oh, who should be in charge of these primaries, like pros and cons of each different candidate, and there's a lot of nervousness about that. But there's already a reliable, like mountain moving force and a trust. The ball's on this man. He's just like the alpha now. He's like the alpha does not have to listen to the teacher, but like unironically, he's just that. That's what Gavin Newsom is. He's the president of the United States because he's realized what the game is. And he's already just, this is what leadership is, taking initiative. Yeah, if California was an independent country, it would have the fourth largest economy in the world. His president isn't insignificant. True. 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 In this, it's wild, but that's what it is. And it's like, even frankly, in the worst case scenario, there are not free and fair elections. There is a split, like fallout. We get like the new California Republic, and that's what it would be called. That's just what it should be. You get the whole West Coast, you know, and you get like even a lot of the Northeast, hopefully reaching down to me in Maryland, like reaching and grabbing it. He's in charge. Newsom is de facto in charge, which is an incredible campaign strat. Yeah, Gavin is what Trump imagines himself to be. Yeah, masculinity wise. And that's an interesting thing too. And this is a scary thing, okay? One key demographic that may determine maybe the whole election is young men. Like young men swung for Trump because like young men are willing to vote and be active and be loud, and terrifyingly are highly receptive to social media and highly interested in this concept of like a masculinity kind of war vibe, right? So like by going on lots of podcasts, by astroturfing lots of podcasts, young men swung far right. And the manosphere stuff is very big right now. But an average hobby lasts about 3 years. Like people are usually even like an incel for like 3 years. You've probably like been into the same kind of content on social media for about like a 3 year period. And that's kind of like how long a phase is. So that's gonna phase out. But if like you are voting on just this masculinity vibe, no Republican candidate can top Gavin Newsom. Like Rubio and Vance are just pathetic followers. Even like the harder the campaign on that. Whereas Gavin Newsom is just he channels that kind of daddy energy that they like falsely and desperately seek everywhere. Republicans keep calling Donald Trump daddy, which is bizarre. But if the race comes down to JD Vance versus Gavin Newsom, which of those two is daddy, and which is but a young lad, which is but a boy? And these are the kind of fault lines on which elections can be won in this country, as bizarre as that is. Gavin Newsom does have a lot of weaknesses as well, like that are worth acknowledging and considering. If the campaign messaging is affordability, a guy from a super rich state that people can't afford to live in, that's a good point. Like that's not something, you know, that he's gonna win on super hard. There are ways to spin that, and there's money to spin that. And luckily he has time to figure that out because he's realized that campaigning doesn't start like a year outside of election. Campaigning started yesterday. And Gavin Newsom's the only one who seemed to honestly realize that. Tim Walz is your pick for masculine role model in politics? Yeah, Tim Walz is a good guy, and maybe if there's more time that would have resonated more. I'm a woman, so like I don't know. That doesn't really like connect with me. I don't understand that as much. Maybe there's more time, but I did notice conservatives start to like realize that's a threat and then start to spiral news stories like propaganda, just propaganda, saying like he's secretly gay or something or he's weak. They realized that was a threat and that's what they needed to counter narrative wise. Um, yeah, like Gavin has what Obama had, which is this steal your girl energy. And maybe that's enough. I don't know. So like I'm realizing, oh, like Gavin Newsom is like seen as really handsome, and that will, I guess, I'm a lesbian. I don't understand it. So like he's going to win like, among lots of like suburban wives, but also like young men, and frankly, some old men are going to vote for Gavin Newsom because he's handsome. At the end of the day, things like the shutdown and those vibes and how that's going to dominate are nothing compared to this is the guy who's just like is being the authority and getting on camera and going to events. It's funny as hell, but just like the unstoppable vibes of just being the president now. I guess that'll work. Vance versus Newsom, you will not vote. You will vote, and you will vote for Gavin Newsom. There are consequential stakes to all of this. There's always a bigger fish. And apparently, just de facto, that fish is Newsom. But you should vote. Um, as a woman, my rights are on the line. Very seriously. Also, Newsom at no point is asking anyone to like him or to treat him like he's perfect, which is this weird ass cult situation we're in now. And Newsom knows he's like the mean, popular rich kid at school, and he's a bully, but he can be a bully who, and this is I think the biggest feel of Newsom to me. Newsom will not go soft on all of the corruption that has occurred during this term. Like Gavin Newsom, if he could, frankly, would laserize every criminal, every corrupt politician that he possibly could. I think a stronger, solid, long-term brand of the Democratic Party would be to basically be like Aldi or Costco or Walmart. Those are not politicians, and I'm aware of that. Gavin Newsom should also be like the Gap Jeans commercial. Like, or sorry, I think like the Democratic brand should also be like the Gap Jeans commercial and Superman 2025. Um, in terms of politicians, that would be like Obama, and that would be like Mamdani, like a smiley positivity and a strong, reliable sense of affordability. I think those are good, solid brands. The Republican Party can go back to the table. I think there are like real, like diverse conversations to be had on things like, like military policy, herder, like. But the Republican Party has frankly ceded any right to do that for like a generation. Um, they need to we need to kind of clean house. And once they've thought about what they've done, and they like there are new people who represent worthwhile values worth representing again, they can go back to the table. Until then, the new like bipartisan divide I want to see. If I hear about bipartisan bills, to me that means Democratic moderates and Democratic progressives. Because over here, this weird conspiracy to literally protect pedophiles is not valid. It's just not. Just like I have a vote of no confidence for that. The alternative, and this is I'm excited. This just popped up on like the Google News feed, and I like pulling from all kinds of news sources. I try to discriminate on that. Also, ooh, the Hills website is really good. It's been years studying web design, and I really like this use of like color. It's bold, it's clean. The House responds to Epstein emails invoking Trump. Oh boy, let's see how they deflect from this one. The objective facts, pre-politics, that for years, this is common knowledge, Jeffrey Epstein is the closest thing to a friend Donald Trump ever has or will have. If Gavin can fix the housing and pricing issues in California, make the state easily affordable, Republicans will be able to touch. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just being from California, it's not even any policy, it's just a vibe. But Meanwhile, this is the opposition. Um, Epstein's friend is the president of the United States, and the Republican Party is dedicated to protecting Epstein's friends. The White House defended President Trump's handling of Jeffrey Epstein, accusing Democrats of selectively releasing emails from the deceased sex offender that reference the president. You don't need every email to be about the president. Not all facts in the world are evidence of a crime, but if there is evidence of a crime, then it's a crime, okay? The fact that I have a bananas and cream protein shake right here um, is not relevant. But like, it's not cherry picking to be like they're only cherry picking the evidence. But wow, they're defending this. And this is bad, right? This is like Biden frankly sank when it felt like he was defending unwinnable battles and defending losing sides battle on like affordability. It doesn't resonate with like the pain and the fact people can see with their own eyes. But it's bizarre to me that okay, the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Oh no, that's the Democrats. It's bizarre to me that the White House is trying to defend this. I'm curious also who they got to like be the person to defend this. Usually, if it's something risky or bad, um, Trump and the president, the Republicans, will try to have a woman be the messenger of bad news. Um, or they'll have like they have Indian people in positions of power weirdly because like Trump just hates black people. I've not seen like black people in any positions of real power in the Trump White House. But they're using like Indian people as their token minorities and women, like white blonde women as their token minorities who can be their fault lines and will be their scapegoats. Like they want to crack. They're not putting white men in positions of danger. Well, there is, I mean, there's Mike Johnson in the House, but that's not like a White House appointee. And Mike Johnson is very clearly gay and in the closet about it, but the closet's made of glass. Yes, in the emails, Epstein says Trump spent hours at his house, while another says the president knew about the girls. This is true. He's made a TikTok about this. He made a TikTok about this. Let's see. In a 2011 email to Maxwell, who was later convicted on charges of trafficking young girls to Epstein, the disgraced financier wrote, I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victims spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. This is talking about like Trump is not a snitch. Trump was spending hours with a victim at Epstein's house, and Trump is the one who is not snitching because, frankly, Trump is in too deep. Trump is Epstein's best friend. Um, Epstein wrote, victim Mar-a-Lago reacted. Trump said he asked me to resign. Never remember ever. Of course he knew about the girls. Of course he knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop. A pedophile should not be in the White House. An administration that's primary purpose at this point is protecting a pedophile is unacceptable to me. It should be to any like basically reasonable, decent person. Yeah, shouldn't, but is. Um, the White House on Wednesday blasted Democrats for redacting information that was not shielded in the files, saying the victim referenced was Virginia Jeffrey, one of Epstein's most vocal accusers, who died by suicide this year, and said she worked at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort when she was 16 years old in 2000. Democrats selectively leaked emails to the liberal media to create a fake narrative to smear President Trump. This is just objectively, like, the emails exist. They're facts. They preceded this. The, uh, oh my God, wait. So, Carolyn Levitt's statement is to name the victim? Oh my God, saying that like President Trump wasn't involved and couldn't have been friendlier in their limited interactions. Imagine it was anyone else doing this. Imagine if anyone else doing this. Imagine if it was, if this is how, imagine if any black person did a crime, right? Couldn't have been friendlier in their limited interactions. Who gives a fuck? This is the person who did a crime. The fact remains that President Trump kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club decades ago for being the creepiest female employees, including Jeffrey. I mean, it's very clear, though. Like, we're getting more context, right? And the context is that Donald Trump was not a snitch to the stuff he actually knew about. Donald Trump spent hours at Jeffrey Epstein's house with a 16-year-old. Why was Donald Trump spending hours at Jeffrey Epstein's house with a victim of Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking? And in the same email, that being described as like, you know, the only dog that didn't bark and didn't come up, mentions the police chief. Epstein was hopeful that Trump wouldn't snitch on him. And he didn't. He didn't. This is who Donald Trump was. He protects his pedophile friends because he's a pedophile too. They share secrets and they stick together. Shocking to hear President Trump invoke our sister and say that he was aware that Virginia had been stolen from Mar-a-Lago. True. It makes us ask if he was aware of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal actions, especially given his statement 2 years later that his good friend Jeffrey Epstein likes women on the younger side, no doubt about it. We in the public are asking for answers. Survivors deserve this, the family said in a statement. The president has for months railed against demands for transparency in the Epstein case as a hoax, even as members of his own party and his MAGA base have called for the release of additional documents and held press conferences with Epstein victims. Trump has previously faced scrutiny over reports of a birthday message he wrote to Epstein in 2003 that featured the outline of a woman's figure, it's a girl's figure, with a hypothetical conversation between the two men. In the message, Trump references a wonderful secret and notes the men have certain things in common. 5 cats. Thank you. Um, yeah, the birthday book, weird. All of his friends writing him little love letters in his birthday book. Not gonna put the image in this article. We know the image. It's just sad. It's just creepy. In one of Epstein's emails with Wolf, the columnist suggests the financier could Epstein could earn points with Trump by staying quiet after the then candidate was expected to have questions about the relationship. I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt, Wolf wrote. Leaders are supposed to be better than this, by the way. Leaders are supposed to be better than this. Of course, it is possible that we're going to still say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. Well, yeah, that happened. Also, it's come out that Ghislaine Maxwell during the Trump term, right? So first of all, Jeffrey Epstein died. You know, Epstein killed himself on Trump's watch when Epstein was supposed to be on high security watch, so he wouldn't do something like that. Um, Epstein died on Trump's watch. Under Biden, they investigated Ghislaine Maxwell, kept her alive. We're getting information, carefully protecting victims, but like they got it right. Now that Trump is back, Ghislaine Maxwell has been moved to a lower security prison where she gets to do like fun, casual rich people prison, and she's even there been given special treatment. Ghislaine Maxwell is getting to like pick what she wants to eat. Ghislaine Maxwell is getting to play with dogs. Um, she's being waited on hand and foot. Unacceptable. Supreme Court might just save Trump from himself and save $8,000 in the process. Yeah, no. Trump's tariffs are, gosh, find another article. Trump's tariffs are a disgusting, regressive policy. That's just bad. Uh, nice. Yeah, do something. Yeah, it's hilarious. I'm gonna make a video about it later. Trump's tariffs are just a regressive tax policy, right? Like in the American Revolution, this is how like primitive an idea tariffs are, and they're only seriously used these days as like a political punishment, not uh, economic policy. But like in the Revolutionary War, the types of taxes they were complaining about were like things like tariffs. It's like the Boston Tea Party. Um, it was a tariff on tea was too high. They didn't want to pay it because a tariff is an income tax paid by the importing country. The United States pays tariffs. It's meant to make products from other countries seem more expensive. So then locally produced stuff by comparison was cheaper. But it's only like by putting kind of as a weird manipulation on the market, not the free market. This is an anti-free market. I don't understand how conservatives are trying to like rectify that in their head. Different policies. Um, I don't understand. I don't get it. But tariffs are just a bad idea. They're not generating nearly enough money. We're getting all these lies about like how much it'll help or whatever, but it's not. Like there's not enough money there. Because Trump is very like marketing first, not a good policy brain, does not understand the economy. Trump is like, oh, we'll give everyone $2,000 checks or $5,000 checks or whatever it is from tariffs, and it's like, okay, no, because the point of the tariffs was to hurt people and supposedly to generate more money, which it's not doing. Um, but isn't that meant to cover all the other government expenses you're already like using to justify tax breaks with? And then short of that, like there's not enough money for that. And then also if you give everyone a direct check, it causes an explosion of inflation. Yeah, like shred. There's no sense in the tariffs. There's no sense in it. So luckily, like if the Supreme Court does stop the tariffs, it's better for the economy, but it also gives Trump a win. It's like saving him from himself. It's nothing to do with the shutdown. I know the shutdown like sucks in a lot of ways. The way it ended sucked, but I mean, if the Democrats successfully protected ACA subsidies, it gives Trump a win. It's saving like the uninformed Republican voter from an understanding of what they actually voted for. So in a way, it's kind of like let them touch the stove and find out. Yeah. So I'm spacing out a little bit. I'm gonna go back to playing a game. I'm happy to just casually talk about stuff. Let me see. Uh, yeah, and like people have already spent more money, because prices have gone up everywhere. That a check from the tariffs, like you've already spent the money. But giving everyone like a check is a bad idea. Like we did it in COVID, because we kind of didn't have a choice. And as you can all see, like it caused huge shockwaves of inflation that we barely recovered from, and are just going to get worse again. So, like, Trump's own people have not supported his weird tariff ideas. Trump's own people have not supported this, certainly this idea that he came up with on the spot of, oh, we're going to give everyone a check. And Trump only came up with that because he was told about people complaining about affordability after the election. Republicans got stumped. And Trump doesn't actually know or understand affordability. And that's why his idea was give people a check again. Because it's a thing he knows because he's old and like having brain problems. It's a thing he knows, so he gets to go back and do that. And it's just not a good idea. But he's never known the economy. Bankrupted a casino, for God's sakes. At 4 p.m. today, hopefully the representative who's been elected in September will be sworn in. We will see if that actually happens, if they come up with another excuse. Republicans are currently already trying to stipulate ACA subsidies in that vote, which is going to be just a vote on that, with abortion restrictions, like abortion bans, which is fucked up and not going to happen. That's how Republicans are trying to already like stop Democrats from doing that thing they're supposed to do. So I'm worried as we get closer to this afternoon. I'm just, no, we don't know anything yet, but just I'm bracing myself for they're not going to swear her in, or they're going to come up with some excuse, or they're going to try and like put some other condition on it, um, which will be fucked up. I don't trust Mike Johnson for shit. No one trusts Mike Johnson. Like he does not have independent ideas and know what he's doing. The one independent thought Mike Johnson did have was saying that Trump was an informant for the FBI on Epstein, so he was just, fucking kids because he was undercover, I guess. There's no evidence for it, like that he was an FBI informant. It just didn't happen. It's just not a thing. And so they immediately walked that back. But that was clearly Mike Johnson on the spot, actually trying to answer things. Which is why ever since Mike Johnson's answer to anything is just I don't know about that. I haven't heard about that, which is questionable because even under a government shutdown, when supposedly his only job would be to negotiate ending the government shutdown, he wasn't doing that on vacation. You'd think he'd have more time to catch up on the news. It's not like he was busy with something else. So it's just a lie. Yeah, Johnson is owned. I think Mike Johnson also is probably very easy to like blackmail. Like there is a widespread kind of understanding. Mike Johnson is probably on Grindr. Someone might have his profile. I don't know. But I mean, Mike Johnson has sold out. Like everything he's claimed to stand on is like even like religious kind of angle. Even religious conservatives will occasionally draw some kind of like moral line on stuff. Mike Johnson doesn't. It's like his whole thing, and he's just desperately like first in line to apologize for pedophiles. I think they got something on him because he's not liked for it. Uh, yeah, Trump is not an informant because if he was an informant, he would have just given up his cover. Um, Hopefully we're seeing like narcissism kind of be his downfall here. And also his like habit to instantly say the right marketing thing and then expect someone else to figure out the actual business implementation. Because like the whole drain the swamp thing, the kill QAnon thing doesn't work when he's the pedophile. The whole affordability thing doesn't work when he's the one building ballrooms. And he just can't back down or say no or apologize on anything. He just can't. So whatever. I mean, he's sinking the ship, and they are all in on it. I'm curious about the Epstein file release though, because what happened is when this representative, duly elected representative, gets sworn in, which should have happened months ago, and she should keep suing about this. Uh, she's going to be the 218th vote on the discharge petition to force a vote to release the Epstein files. So it's not that they can wait for a Republican to win an election and then cancel her vote out. It's not how that works. It's like a petition. People already signed it. They just need her plus one to sign it. And they might find some way to wiggle out of that. But what it's going to do is it's going to force the House to have a vote to release the Epstein files. So it's not that this releases the Epstein files. It's this forces a vote on the Epstein files. The thing is, will any Republicans who voted for this flip, right? Will Nancy Mace or whoever who signed the petition then not actually vote to release the Epstein files? They will be roasted for this politically, but they might be rewarded by Trump personally. I'm really worried. I don't think Massey's going to flip. Marjorie Taylor Greene certainly is not going to flip. Marjorie Taylor Greene, because the Trump administration said they wouldn't support her running for Senate, is on this like scorched earth anti-Trump. She knows how to play the game, and she's positioning herself as like the opposition candidate. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to absolutely vote to release the Epstein files and stand by that. I'm also interested if we will see kind of a prisoner's dilemma thing. Trump looks weak. He's not winning on affordability. People kind of see the writing on the wall. This is a great jumping off point because we all know as soon as the Epstein files get released, what the right side of history is going to be and what the wrong side of history is going to be. And anyone who supports this cover up, anyone who supports Trump is going to be on the wrong side of history. So I'm hoping that some of them will jump and we'll start to see party lines, like new party lines be drawn. Um, I am curious who's still going to stand by Trump. It's going to be more people than we think. But expect as the day goes on, we'll see lots more ridiculous spin in favor of um, protecting Epstein's friends, especially as this new vote comes to pass. It is highly doubtful that Republicans in the House will vote against to release files. Well, here's the thing: like some Republicans have already agreed to this discharge petition, so there will be that support. The question is, will they keep that support? Will they say, hey, like, will they agree to release the Epstein files? Because they agreed to the vote to release the Epstein files. And it's also like women. Frankly, on average, I trust women more on stuff like this. I think it's kind of telling there. Like, is Nancy Mace, Marjorie Taylor Greene, just the two I remember. Nancy Mace is like a more of a wild card. Marjorie Taylor Greene is an actress, but she's very clearly anti-Trump now, and she sees the writing on the wall. I think everything Marjorie Taylor Greene has done, especially the crazy shit, has been an act. She's a psychopath and a bad person. Like, do not trust Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's hoping to lead the Republican splinter faction and to also pick up some votes from like leftists and anti-institutional, anti-establishment leftists as well, and hoping that can be a coalition that can lead her to like a presidential run. Nothing about Trump's persona makes sense. He always brags about being a great deal maker, but he never makes deals. Yeah, that's the weird thing too. Yeah, like I mean, weirdly, I would hope that would have stuck. He promised he's going to make all these deals. No one seemed to care when he didn't. But foreign policy is maybe a little nebulous. And that's why, like, I'm worried about now. Like, yeah, he's a hypocrite. But like, what's the psychology of that? Why are certain things sticking and other things not sticking? Why is it the Epstein files? Why are they now like willing to pretend to be shocked about the Epstein files, but like willing to morally turn on Trump over the Epstein files? It's a weird one. Um, of all the things, because generally, as a general rule, I think honestly, people are willing to let a lot of evil shit go as long as their economic, like personal, selfish bottom line is still fine. And it's still, I guess, to be seen a little bit. But like, frankly, I expected to see more Republican outrage about like trade policy than the Epstein files, because assuming selfishness, one gets you somewhere, one doesn't. Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene's whole bit is like she's just going to be a lunatic because that wins the attention economy. And sure enough, like from her first term as like a congresswoman, she has been very popular. Like, how many Congress people do you think that most people can name? She's among them. All she had to do was say some nonsense about Jewish space lasers. Does she actually believe that? I don't think so. It's an act. She's an actress. I am highly disappointed though that I've seen like lots of left-leaning voices be like, "Wow, she's making good points." Also, people being like, "Wow, Candace Owen makes some good points." The problem is that like I think the Democratic establishment has been so out of touch on specifically denouncing the atrocities in Gaza, like the war crimes of Netanyahu, that it's leading to a bipartisan surge in anti-Semitism, and we will see a new coalition build around that. I think the Democrats will get their shit together and agree on like begrudgingly a more establishment leaning, but like hopefully more progressive friendly and more progressive speaking ticket and kind of vision and unity going forward. But we are going to see a lot of like the far left kind of bleed out, and a lot of the radical right is going to bleed out from the Republican Party in a post-Trump world, and they're going to unite into kind of a populist movement, which is upsetting. I'm hoping the Republican Party at least does not capture that. It's going to be like Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, are going to be running for president. Marjorie Taylor Greene has it unless any man runs on the same platform. Like Tucker Carlson can just do it better because he's a man and they're sexist. But maybe she'll keep Marjorie Taylor Greene around as like a VP. But I'm really worried about the kind of rising anti-Semitism, and it is becoming anti-Semitism, right? It started by like criticizing specifically like genocidal war crimes and starvation in Gaza by Netanyahu's government of Israel. And then it's turned into just like not only Israel, but like AIPAC specifically, but not the other PACs influencing our government to do horrible things. And I've started to see more and more mask off like it's about the Jewish religion or just Jewish people in general, which is not true. And people are not good at drawing that line, and they're just going to fail to draw that line. Like I think it's super important to be responsible about this stuff and draw a high bar because the internet will like run things lowest common denominator. And so even through the McCain years, we're seeing like the year desire for Trump start to rise because we were seeing like Sarah Palin was prominent, right? When you sell people on these dog whistle versions of bigotry and stupidity and anger and rage and like the enemy, why would you go soft on the enemy? If you truly believe that other people in your country are in fact monsters, what good is there in moderation? Like your goal should be extermination. And now that that energy has been applied to the establishment is out of touch, and then also Israel bad, we're going to see a Nazi wave. We're seeing like Groyperism become mainstream. And I don't understand why Democrats don't give a shit about that because that's a problem. My live just got flagged and age restricted. So I call out anti-Semitism. Weird. Interesting. Or is it because I called out the Groypers? Interesting. Interesting. Good to know. It's political, it's only a matter of time, but geez, what a time for that to happen. And what misinformation? What misinformation? Let's see, are there any news updates? I know there's one salty Republican, or probably Groyper, in my chat. It's probably just been spam reporting shit. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like on the religious right, but like it's important to understand and contextualize that. I think it's like still like 70+% of America identifies as Christian, and a lot of them like it's very different Christianity than we think of like literal like oh theological like this is what's in the Bible and the kind of like history of Christianity. It's this like weird kind of thing, and it's used as like a bludgeon and a cudgel a lot, but they're out of step. Like JD Vance is a late in life Catholic convert, and this is important and terrifying to me because at the same time, like he doesn't like the Pope, and the Pope keeps telling him he's wrong about stuff. Um, the old Pope told him he's wrong about stuff. That Pope died. Now we have like a new Pope who also tells him wrong. So we have all this movement, which is like it's frankly like a Nazi movement. They keep branding themselves as Christian, but they also hate the Catholic Church and they hate like Christianity and they hate Christians and they hate Jesus and they hate immigrants and they hate everything the Bible's about because it's all just dog whistles. And I think the next election is going to have a lot of religious and gender themes. There's going to be a lot of misogyny and sexism. There's going to be a lot of talk about Israel and Jewish people and Christianity and the Catholic Church. And I know this is weird because I have no horse in this race, but I think one of the most important critiques to make of JD Vance as early and as often as you can is he's a fake Christian. Weirdly, like centuries old and kind of irrelevant, like divides of like, hey, can a Catholic be president? Isn't that the wrong kind of Christian? Might be at least useful to invoke and a useful discussion to raise, especially in like the MAGA base. Like, hey, wait, isn't he like dutifully, supposed to follow the Pope? And isn't the Pope woke? Is that a betrayal to MAGA values? And push those fault lines and see what happens. I'm a little curious. Um, the religious psychosis we saw this year from a lot of these people is interesting. Like we've forgotten these parts of the conversations. And you can have a leftist give you like a Marxist class analysis all you want, but you're not able to explain all of the things in play. You're not able to describe their like working classes people contempt for the working class. You're not able to describe their contempt for black people and brown people. Um, yeah, things ought to make sense, and like they should make sense, right? Like truth has a liberal bias. Um, you shouldn't have to deal with any cognitive dissonance in your view. But I think it's scary when you like I don't know, I'll talk to some leftists and they're like, usually I find leftists and that's at one point. But like they can't really tell you why Bernie Sanders doesn't win without appeals to conspiracy. They can't really explain to you why Bernie Sanders was not popular among a racially diverse coalition. They're just missing some pieces. Everyone's missing some pieces. And conservatives like have this weird religious angle, and also it's hard to explain. Even if you just like look into Christianity as kind of a literal, like exact how it should be. I guess so, like as a religion, you think it's based on like a specific ideology, based on like a specific holy book. You can't really explain why Donald Trump is their Christ figure and why Obama is their antichrist figure. Like you need to understand like anti-blackness is a huge part of this. And then like weird it's not just like capitalism. It's specifically the is it's almost like a virtue ethics around this concept of a just world that work is rewarded with money. So the more rich you look, the more hard work you are. And it's also interesting. I don't have a great explanation on this of why that doesn't transfer to Gavin Newsom. And like, California is hard to afford, but that means it has high value, right? Um, and to see someone successful then reads as a coastal elite and it's out of touch. Whereas Donald Trump was seen as the hero of the working class. Like, it make sense. On the surface, it seems like paradox and seems hypocritical, and it's worth digging into. A lot of it is just propaganda, people like willing to accept inconsistencies. But I think we're also missing like the narrative, at least, that helps them rationalize this. I don't think we've gotten a good handle on. And it's important to preempt, and it's important then to find those faults and be able to describe, and I don't have a good description of this yet, why and how JD Vance, whose whole claim to fame is this like fake Ohio, he's like a carpetbagger. but this kind of Appalachian working class narrative, why that's invalid or unworthy is important because otherwise, like that's what the sales pitch is going to be if he's smart, and he's not very smart, but that's the kind of battleground of tomorrow, and I want to be ready for that. Um, Lilith Crowbar on TikTok makes good videos talking about this. Like, there's like this deep kind of religious culture in the U.S., and you like need that in like the critique and explanation. It's made like really good videos on that kind of subject and stuff like that. Like the religiosity is not we can't just drop that and move on. Um, I think a danger on both sides after Obama was president is this false presumption, especially by like white privileged people, that like racism is over and we live in a post-racial world. We can drop that, and we fail to understand and express that a big reason Donald Trump won in 2016 and what the appeal was frankly, and like I mean, as like a lesbian, like this the language I use for this makes the most sense to me how I see it. He gave permission for racists to come out of the closet. And as much as like leftists talk about having a revolution, um, bigots genuinely had a revolution in 2016. It was a big moment where they were able to say like, we're throwing off the shackles of this institution that is telling us we can't just be racist and say the quiet part out loud. Which is honestly cashing in on decades of Republican strategy, dog whistling these concepts to a point that you've raised generations who are like, honestly, like, hey, a bunch of us believe this. Why can't we just say it? What's the good in holding back? Why are we just watering down our own views and censoring ourselves? And if you look at like the 2016 Republican primary as a bunch of watered down versions versus the person who's saying what, you know, quote unquote, we're all thinking, it's obvious why he won. It wasn't even close. Like he was just the best product. Like everyone else was just like the diet soda version. And that's where that leads. And that's why like we're seeing that echo back and snap back today. Um, yeah, now they see Donald Trump's wealth as like a God's blessing, which is like a weird thing. We're seeing this echo back today. We're like, where does the Republican Party go from here? And it's funny now to see. It's sad and tragic to see even so many conservatives be like, oh, but now there's these workers. We're not going to do like Nazi shit. No, obviously that's wrong. It's like, really? Is that populist anger and bigotry not just like the quiet part out loud you've been like quietly leading people up to for years? Is that not just the optimal min-max version of like the shitty messaging and story you've been telling people? And that's a real threat, and it's worth like keeping an eye on. So I don't have all the answers. I'm just trying to understand. And one thing I want to do is like how I ideally like to help and contribute to a lot of these discussions in culture is sort of be like an anti-Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon was the only like adult in the room who genuinely kept an eye on the meme culture and saw there was potential there and saw there was risk there and then seized that and used that and communicated that to people in power. Um, he's a shitty, bad, weird, crazy person, but he used a resource that was present and no one else saw. Um, I don't think people understand that one of the most important political fronts of the past 10 years was Superman movies. The like Zack Snyder fan base was how a new political generation of conservative men now getting in positions of power was incubated. And they were taught racism and they were taught to loathe kindness and to value fascistic imagery of strong white men, the release of Snyder Cut people. And like this is where it was, and this is where it is. And that's the kind of through line narrative that then the 2024 election cycle tapped into. But they've been going that for years through attacking Amber Heard, on behalf of Johnny Depp, allegedly in their heads. Like it's these are the same thing. That's where the movie came from. People are confused, like, why are young men skewing conservative? It's like because they were on YouTube the whole time and they had a constant algorithm of here's why minorities ruin movies. Unlike this pure one where we have this like literal Nazi propaganda, like ruthless white man who kills everyone else. Bannon is and meets Rush Limbaugh, true. I have not. Could you give me like a book recommendation? I'm sorry, I don't have Venmo. I will put up Venmo. It's been a rough week. I'm sorry. I've had to deal with a lot of funeral administrative stuff. I'm gonna redo my website this weekend and update it with a bunch of new information and description and stuff. Yeah. Uh, this has been kind of an easy distraction, but like the sitting down hard work of like doing website stuff and logistics and I don't know, I was looking at money and like the future and stuff, and that's hard for me right now. But yes, I will get there. I will do that. Thank you for reminding me. Um, yeah. So yeah. But I just I don't know. I feel like a crazy person saying in a vacuum of like, hey, you guys, like we have to be paying attention to what the forums are saying about the new Superman movie if we care about national politics. But we do. And this is why like I don't know like it seems, to a boomer in traditional politics, like the Charlie Kirk thing in September seems like it happens out of nowhere. But I'm like, no, this is an inevitability with the current trajectory of like where politics are actually coming from. In the same way, a lot of like good artistic pop culture comes up from like Black queer communities. I think a lot of political discourse flows down the other way from like white boys online, in a way where I'm not even sure they realize the power they hold. So even a lot of people like saying stuff ironically leads to actual like changes in policy. And there's a delay because through staffer through like normification, but it gets around, it gets through, it cycles through. Like yesterday's memes are tomorrow's politics. Oh, thank you. Um, yeah, Bannon took what Rush did to boomers and brought it to Gen Z. True. Yeah, that's kind of the role he was in. Um, yeah, it's important to see like where these people are pulling from and what they're doing and what the effect they have. And it's dangerous also. And this is like a huge mistake that I need everyone to know. Hassan Piker pulls anyone who's generally curious about politics and wants to be kind of vaguely progressive into like not voting and not doing anything and just donating and like having contempt for the most progressive, effective people. Whereas Nick Fuentes takes all the people who are like bigoted and curious and want to know how to do anything with that as like they become grown-ups, and then gets them to infiltrate political organizations and discourse and like become effective propagandists. This is critically dangerous. And if you look at these as like flows of water over time, one is creeping into a system and one is pulling out of a system. Like one is dripping out of a system. And then what's left in the bucket when you cut back like a year later, 10 years later. All young Republican staffers now are like from the alt-right meme boards of like 5 to 10 years ago. So then eventually, those are the experienced Republican staffers who will then start running for office. Does anyone seriously think that the like Nazi group chat messages were an aberration? That's their norm. That's why no Republicans were surprised. It's not a big deal. Some of them apologize for getting caught. Not all of them even apologize for getting caught. Because in a way, frankly, it's like a recruitment angle for them. Um, how do you think ICE was able to recruit and scale up so quickly? Like they didn't even have, equipment yet, and some people just showed up having equipment already. It's because they were directly recruiting from the Proud Boys. Not everyone is terminally online, but those who are terminally online, like those are the first early adopter wave of messengers and recruiters and stuff. And it's bothering me that people in power don't see that. And over my dead body, will I let that go to waste? These are critical spaces for like good voices, and not just like political voices. I mean, just an explicit pipeline. If what we really need are father figures making content online about how to be a kind, productive member of society. What we need are men talking to boys who are worried about their place in the world, especially when it comes to relationships, family, and like personal identity. Because where those young men are currently getting into are all alt-right pipelines. I was shocked to find out like how ubiquitously young men, even who are not in the alt-right now, talk about, oh yeah, there was a time when I fell down the alt-right pipeline. Like it's almost all of them. And that's concerning to me. This is a far wider problem than I think we thought. And that needs to be dealt with. It needs to be counteracted. Ideally, until there's enough good positive momentum that it can be regulated. Because it's junk food. It's like ultra processed speech. And it's, I mean, it's not even just, I don't know, I'm a woman, I'll be a victim of this stuff. But even like the young men who fall into stuff, they're victims of it too. It doesn't work. It doesn't make them happy. It doesn't give them purpose. They're not getting a government mandated girlfriend. Such a policy, if it were to be implemented, would just lead to their murders by women, rightfully, like out of self-defense. Well, not even a murder, it's self-defense. Um, and they still wouldn't be happy. Buying a house won't make these people happy. They need basic social skills and they need to value empathy and curiosity fundamentally. So otherwise they don't know how to use it. Like they could be dropped into a perfect social situation, a perfect economic situation, and they still flounder. So they don't know what they're looking for. They don't know how to get it. They don't know how to be happy or fulfilled. In 2015, out of curiosity, if anyone here has fallen into the pipelines, what was it that got you into it? Like what was the initial pull? What were those like questions or feelings that you didn't feel were answered, and then you felt like how did you feel they were getting answered? Like no judgment. And I guarantee what I'm my hypothesis is it's not going to be very political. It's going to be very like sub-political or like a very niche kind of thing, and it's really going to be about a feeling. But I'm curious. I'd love to see some answers. Like I think a lot of our politics right now are downstream of like psychosexual issues of Republican men. Mm. State mandated therapy. Just like pick any therapist and go to therapy. Even if therapy was free, like I know a lot of men wouldn't take the opportunity, but that's what's needed, honestly, because it's just people with problems and they're just like crumpling up those problems and then throwing them at everywhere else. And the problem is like lots of white men have made their problems everyone else's problems. And that's why like it becomes a crisis. Like there isn't like a loneliness epidemic. This is not a public crisis. But when they turn that into a like a school shooting crisis, they're like threatening everyone else, then like we all have to solve that problem for them or else. And it's awful that it comes to that. Yeah, like I don't support any kind of deprogramming or like brainwashing or like re-education. People who do that, is just like it's just authoritarian. You can't do that. It's not how that works. You need people to convince people normally. However, I think misinformation needs to be deregulated. If we could like talk to people on like a ground of facts again and an emotional feels, like then you can actually get somewhere. But there's just no getting anywhere when people are, yeah, just guzzling the end of like a propaganda hose. Um, I think we need to bring back the fairness doctrine. This would be absolutely trash of media by like every outlet because it affects every outlet. Like MS Now will not be happy with me either for that, but you know, I don't care. I think the fairness doctrine is important. I think people are saying this. I mean, the big thing also being a designer, I've seen lots of people make apps and stuff, like even like teams when I was in school. Um, there's a desperation. The most popular kinds of projects teams make, like Gen Z teams make for an app, like a concept app or whatever, they're always addressing loneliness. It's always like find like, friends to talk to, or like dating apps or like ways to find and organize in-person events. Like how to meet up with people or like, event hosting, stuff like that. How to coordinate that. Like young people want to use phones and the internet and social media and apps and stuff just to leverage in-person traditional relationships again, and hangouts again and like meeting spaces because there's just a desperate absence of that. And a lot of it too, because it's design oriented. It's not meant to just be, hey, look, to make a fun code thing. It's you talk to people and you try and drill down onto problems and then make solutions to those problems. Like like clockwork. Younger designers and developers keep churning out concept solutions to these broader problems. But no app is going to fix that. And we know that. But like we want to leverage any tool or power we have to fix that. You saw your dad making life unfair for your mom and your family. Yeah, we got lucky. Nice lady is pipeline. Yeah, that's the thing too. It's like it's always like a lot of it's usually something about parents, and then like projecting like gender or power dynamics onto their parents. It's a lot of authoritarianism. People who like authoritarianism tended to have abusive authoritarian fathers, usually, maybe mothers, but usually fathers who like abuse them. And then how you rationalize it growing up is like they don't want to think their childhood was bad or their childhood was atypical or their parents were bad. They start to then see that as a virtue to model. And then like when it gets feels validating when they see like a strong man as a leader, who's doing like the same abusive behavior their dad did, and then they're incentivized to find other people who like that and then say, yeah, we all like this. This is normal, right? Because if this is normal and good, that means that my childhood was normal and good. And that means like my parents were good. And we can't condemn this because if this is bad, then that means all that horrible stuff I went through was actually horrible and I have to face that. It's a big problem. Um, we also see like an appetite from people who've been exposed in childhood, usually to like a parent with alcoholism or like a drug addiction or like pills or something like that. Um, and then there's like this desire for this like broad, sweeping, childish concept of order, usually enforced as a way to make sense and like protect against that. They grew up kind of flailing in childhood a lot. Lonely and jobless on you. Yeah, it's a flood hate. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's flood. And that's the other thing too. It's why it's important to make lots of videos and talk about anything you can. Um, it is super, super, super important. And this is what Stephen Bannon understands this. Flood the zone. You don't need to get them on everything. People aren't going to agree with you on everything. It's like leftists and liberals do not understand this. Democrats don't understand this. It's not this like, oh, but like, what if we say something this year? No, you need to find one thing that resonates and just keep rolling the dice until you do. Not every video is going to go viral. Make lots of videos, right? Like you got to keep trying and just hope for the one thing. And that's how these systems work, is they flood you through every niche. You think of like, oh, what spaces online leads to the alt-right pipeline? It's every popular niche, every popular topic you can choose. Um, Fitness content gets you there because you have this like aesthetic of like white muscular men. Um, what else? What else leads to the pipeline? Video games lead to this feeling of this confused, media illiterate, history illiterate feeling of like you are not present in games anymore, you're alone. And then also like the violence in military history. There's a few pathways into gaming. That's why it's useful. Um, Even like cooking, like fitness adjacent, like nutrition can lead into this like propagandistic nut job fear of medicine, because you don't understand what's in medicine, and this like romanticization of having a garden, which is like very trad wifey too. Like people in vlogs, you get like the trad content where it's like, look at our nice house. We're an upper middle class family. If only you had a house like this, right? You start watching their vlogs about their daily life, and then they could just like drop some weird sexist shit. And the problem is in those marriages, they're not usually happy marriages. What it usually is you have like a man who just like has money from a job, and then a woman who's willing to smile and nod and put up with a relationship that's not fulfilling just because whatever, there's money in it and she can like live in a nice house and then he's gone most of the day, or luckily like goes on business trips and then like sleeps with other people, but then they don't even like sleeping with them anyway, but then they don't have to deal with him. They don't have to deal with him, so they will get to live mostly to themselves, like by themselves in a nice house. And then the man, who's himself like hopped up on this like propaganda, they can just smile and nod and affirm that. Like most of these trad wives don't believe it for a minute. Um, they're just cashing in on like their naive husbands who do, which weirdly is kind of feminist and like they're holding all the cards. But all these trad wives are like, oh, you just need to do this and have marriage, like always obey. They're not obeying shit. Um, these women are running the households fully, like all the time, and I can see it. Like, I mean, it's maybe it's like a subtle body language thing. I don't understand how so many men fall for this, but like all these women in these videos, like clearly are just smiling and nodding and don't believe it at all, and they're signposting that. Like Melania Trump, does not like Donald Trump and is not a loyal housewife at all. She is like an impatient like business empress with a side piece. Erica Kirk, impatient business empress with a side piece. The creators and consumers of like any trad content are different people. They don't believe it themselves. I'm trying to. Oh yeah, is there like a left wing? Is there a difference between right wing authoritarianism and the left wing one? On the left, I think there's an age when like you're typically a teenager, where a lot of young people start to realize society isn't good and isn't moving as much as it could and isn't doing as much. And you like if you're genuinely curious, and you start to learn about issues and you see the imperfections, you get annoyed that there are imperfections. And the world seems easy to move and small to move. So you don't realize like the bureaucracy and how hard it is. But you think that we should at least try, and it's like worth trying. And there's typically a worse period, usually in college, where you aren't actually burdened by capitalism as much as you think you are. You may be poor, but you don't have to like burn all of your physical and mental energy trying to work. Um, but you see all the problems with it. It's like, oh, you have this window to move the world. And it leads into lots of resentment at every imperfection in every system you've ever experienced. Rightful resentment, but that gets channeled a lot. Similarly, and it's usually part of it too when these kids go off to college, they are raised once again as Christian in the US and what that means. And I've even seen like thoughts talk about people like, oh, I've deconstructed. Like, where are they getting this vocabulary word from? I'm curious. Um, because if you don't like going to church, you can just stop going to church, right? Like this, the fact that they're all like specifically sharing the same language, like I deconstructed. I see this even with like older, like millennial and Gen X women too, usually women, um, trying to make a deliberate stand against this upbringing. But systemic thinking is hard to unlearn. And even though they cut out the literalness of like a church community and like God, if you look at like Marxists specifically, It is a one-to-one vocab replacement for evangelical Christian thinking. Um, Evangelical Christians, by the way, are the ones who want to go like door to door or like at events and like convert people because they think it's a holy war and they need to like conquest and spread their ideas. It's not enough to just go to church and have it. Like it's evangelicalism I describe as like Christian imperialism. And that's kind of what it is. Um, but if you look at like the way some like hard leftists talk, they're like, we need to send people to re-education camps. They feel this need to like, it's not enough to have your opinion. You need everyone else to have your same opinion, which is different than leftism in practice, right? Which is like, whatever, they're going to be assholes. We just need to feed them. But that is like a common thread of leftism you see. It's like, no, we need to win the opinion war. And anything short of 100% agreement is failure. And thinking it's mainly about what you believe and the opinions you hold, and look how pure I am, is exactly how a lot of Christians think. Where like a lot of American Christians, as we've seen with one lady calling a bunch of churches, "Will you feed my child?" It's not about doing anything. It's just this feeling of goodness. And people run on feelings a lot. A lot of apps and companies and brands are really just selling a feeling. Like Apple is selling this feeling of creative elitism to people. That's their actual product. There's no notable worthwhile difference between the different iPhones, but it's a brand feeling. Whereas like Samsung people, like if you don't have like an Apple phone, you have like an Android or whatever. If you don't really care, like there's not strong sentiment around that. There's not like the same like feeling you're buying into an identity. So a lot of leftism is really just like young people who've just stopped having to go to church because their parents stopped telling them to because they went to college, and then they think like, wow, I'm not with that now, and they're 180ing, but they're still pulling from what they know. Um, there's like a lot of reverence for Karl Marx specifically, weirdly enough, as like a patriarchal figure. And then they're missing feminist critique. Like, people always say read theory, but it's never like feminist theory. Um, it's never feminist theory. They just kind of replace their patriarch for another one, and it's like idolization of what would he do. And the same way, like even on the right, you have like lots of constitutional conservatives and stuff who are also working with a very evangelical adjacent framework and a bizarre reverence for the founding fathers as like daddy. It's always like this need to fill a daddy shaped hole. Um, and whether that's uh, like the Christian God in the Bible or like the Communist Manifesto and Karl Marx or the founding fathers and like Jordan Peterson's book, it's all the same thinking. Like that's like I look at things like a designer, like what is the actual feeling and need people are feeling, and it's just appealing to the same like brand and the same actual niche. Like you get someone in marketing, that's what they'd be appealing to. Is this is the actual whole here. This is the actual sell. And you can tell people on whatever for that, which is scary. That's what JD Vance is trying to do. But if you take a step back and look at what JD Vance is actually doing, he's insane. He's not even a good rep of it. He's not a good salesman. A similar but different brand is like what you have, I think, with more right authoritarianism is these days, which is more this righteous anger. There's this desire of like not only have a daddy figure, but like daddy's gonna punish you, and I'm good, so daddy's gonna protect me. And then like no, daddy's gonna punish you is how most Republicans vote and think. And to that end, Tucker Carlson is by far the strongest candidate. Like the war on woke is just this jealous, like I'm gonna tell daddy and he's gonna beat you with a belt. That's what it is structurally. It's not more complicated than that. It's not worth debating people on like minority rights if they're just operating from a place of visceral disgust. And frankly, a lot of times when they see the sympathy and systemic support that minorities are getting, it's envy as well. So they're just trying to like appeal to a strong daddy figure and try to get him to hurt you. And they can gloat and like revel in your suffering. It's that also the fact that another psychological need and deeper desire here, like look at a designer, what are people actually trying to do and feel and what do they actually want? Um, a lot of the younger people, especially, have given up on the American dream and the hope that we can have good things. In its place, they're trying to min max so their perceived enemy gets more worse things and fewer good things. Like, if I can't have it, you can't have it either. And I can't be happy, but I can at least watch you suffer and get like some schadenfreude from that. People do this on both sides of the aisle, but it is like the primary ethos of the right. It's also, I think, a major ethos of the more populist left, like the people who are like cheering on Charlie Kirk. That's where they're at politically, emotionally. That's the priority at this point. Because that's like it's built in, like, honestly, coming from a cynicism about what their priorities can be, what their possibilities can be. Yeah, no, you can like be absolutely like a leftist and a feminist, absolutely. But the problem is they're not, and leftism as like an internet word, leftism as an algorithmic term that creates a bubble around it, like leftism, Marxism, like what you actually see like modern day social media movements around leftism are predominantly led and will drift you towards the voices of white men, of angry white men. So it's like, what is that actually about? So when I think of like politics, I feel like you really take a stand like politics about what you do in that sense. And when I think of, like, who's doing the most for people, it's going to be like black women in small towns who are helping people no matter what. It's also going to include like lots of Christian people, including like lots of white women who might even be like Republicans or conservative, but they're motivated by this desire to help people and actually doing it. And that's what I want government at scale to be. The Christian church really rose up out of the Roman Empire and succeeded. It was not the only, I think, religion, really cults. They're also like cults striving to be the next religion in that period, because like in the fall of the Roman Empire, there's lots of angst, there's lots of systemic rot. How the Christian church won and survived evolutionarily to be like a concept we know about and can talk about is because when the Roman Empire was flailing and it was so obsessed with like militaristic macho expansionism that its borders got mathematically, like its area got bigger, and they could no longer support everything. The Roman Empire invested in its border towns to be nice, as for twofold reasons. One, to be like an advertising campaign to the people just outside of the Roman Empire. They would look over the border and think, wow, the Roman Empire looks nice. The next town over is really nice. And then also as like veterans benefits. They want veterans to have a nice place to move and to have like a good town and a good house. So it would create those. Meanwhile, cities like Rome itself got into such a bad rot. It wasn't immigrants. It was like Rome stopped prioritizing its own welfare state, and things got so bad that then the church started voluntarily picking up the slack, and that's where the power shifted. It's really good brand equity that you build by being like, oh, if you actually need help, the authorities you're looking to and like going to be loyal to and support and like run to, and the organization you'll contribute to, stopped being the Roman government and authorities and started being the Christian church. If he needed food, if he needed a place to stay, that's what they would do. We're seeing a similar thing in the US right now, where the federal government is corrupt and militaristic and like obsessed with this macho posting and flailing to project an image of strength, that it's forgetting its basic fundamental duties as a government. And now people are gaining an increased respect and investment in their state and city governments because of it. Because that's where they know like the people who will actually help them, who see them. And that's like how leadership works. Like leadership is like preying on the moment and taking initiative where people are looking for someone to step up. And whoever steps up becomes the new leader. That's why I think emotionally Gavin Newsom is just going to win the presidency. I disagree with Gavin Newsom on like his priorities and like certain political stances and optics and stuff like that. I think he could do more to help homelessness. I think he could do more to support trans rights. However, Gavin Newsom is stepping up. And I think that is a fundamental, like he's seeing the highest priorities of people, practically and emotionally, and that's just how you win. That's like how Christianity did it. That's how Jesus did it without an army or $1 million. And that's why Donald Trump's, however much stolen crypto money and military threats can't compete with. Like, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I'm going to do streams about this in the future. I'm going to make videos about this in the future. Um, just look at the hierarchy of needs and look at like the different degrees of like imagination and self-awareness. And the most fundamentals there are win because there's just more people there. None of your higher order ideals or political ideology matters when people can't afford basic needs. It's not flashy, but that's like what governance looks like. No politics can compete against like the grocery store. why the shutdown ended. So that's weird. In some ways, that means like I have to prioritize. Yeah, like it's about the stakes and the feelings. In some ways, like I will prioritize not like broad, specific, nerdy policies, but if you can promise that those policies are speaking to certain feelings, that works. Memes work. Memes in 2016 were like a by far the most effective political recruitment tool. And I still think they'll let me need more memes. And I'll make a silly video. I made like this, like how to start a counterculture. I want to fill it with stuff like this, like the colors we use, the signage we use, the uniform we use. Um, MAGA is a cult, but it's a cult that spoke to people. And I think both parties should speak to people and like their concerns and try to address those concerns. Any valid politician should. It's not hard. There's room for debate and helping people. I'm just rambling as I power wash. I hope this is like mildly soothing to kind of passively tune into. Also, people come and go. Yeah, the kitty memes explaining the shutdown and stuff. Like the kitty memes are great. Even just Pepe the Frog became like a symbol of an individual passion of beauty. And weirdly enough, if you look at like early like Pepe the Frog memes, a lot of it were like signs of male vulnerability. Like Pepe the Frog would be like, "Hey, I'm artistically expressing myself," or like, "I feel sad sometimes." Do you? Um, in a way that these like young men could safely express that without like being judged or bullied too hard. Um, I think Andy Bashir could run as Mr. Rogers for president, like channel that energy, and maybe connect with more than he thinks, more people than anyone would think. And it's hard. I think young men are going to be the heart of like the upcoming elections, and I'm not sure whether they will respond better to just like the pure macho externality, which I think Newsom captures better than even JD Vance, who's desperately actively trying for that. Um, but also, I wonder if like vulnerability, like male vulnerability and weakness and empathy, would be like a sleeper turnout. Like you wouldn't say it out loud. In the same way, a lot of people voted for Trump because they were like racist but wouldn't say it out loud. But I think there would be a shocking turnout for like the male vulnerability vote. So, I don't know. A lot of things to learn. I wish I could do a bunch of studies on people and just like scan their minds. People respond to feelings. I don't think there's like a loneliness epidemic, but there's loneliness that's just we have tools to address these things already, but no one's used the tools or distributed the tools, namely social emotional learning. One of the most harmful things Republicans have done, obviously deportations, I think, are top of the list. Um, Cutting healthcare is also top of the list, but like cutting social emotional learning is bad in education and also in like PBS and NPR because that's what leads to generational rot. And feelings aren't weak or bad. Like educational experts actually show like if you give people social emotional learning tools and skills, that translates to everything else. That helps them make sense of everything else, including information. Because even if you're trying to just learn facts or math or something, sometimes you don't know things, and that can make you frustrated or upset or scared or worried. And if you give up on learning because you can't handle those feelings or it feels bad and you just like panic and react, then you learn less. You learn less actual facts. Whereas if you know how to like be brave in spite of like fear and sadness and anger, and then be able to cope with that, that lets you learn more hard information. It lets you learn from more people and deal with new people and new ideas and new places better. And that helps you learn everything else. It's like the gateway to everything else. Um, if we tell kids like no, like feelings are bad, feelings are gay, you can't have feelings, and they just don't have that, and then we just throw lots of math at them. So you don't learn how to do math. They learn how to do just enough math to like know they have to sound confident when they say things, so people don't know they don't know math. Um, this facade of confidence to act like they know things rather than actually like know things. And then they just use that, and then they get jobs where they're bad at their jobs because they don't know how to do things, and they just lie to everyone else that they know how to do things. And then every office and institution is shitty. And then they go home and they take that out by like beating their wives. If it sounds like I'm describing most people in positions of power who are especially like over the age of 50, you would be correct. Actions have consequences. There's a very clear, like, big picture systemic domino here. You need to think like designers. Allowing rooms for like education and feelings isn't getting in the way of learning real stuff like math. It's what enables you to learn stuff like math. Thanks. I'm glad this is helping other than just kind of like casually ranting. But yeah, like I try to kind of generally, like, I'm trying to rise above like specific political news stories that were facts. What I hate a lot of like, especially college educated, usually white Democrats will do, who identify as both establishment and progressive. It's not exclusive to one. Be like, can you believe they said this hypocritical thing? That sucks. And then like do like a smug look at the camera and cross their arms. Um, that's you're missing the plot. People are voting like and acting on a sub logic, sub factual level of emotion and relatability. Like, what's the narrative? What's the story? And that's what we need to actually speak to. Like, if I were to debate conservatives, which I've done before and will do more of, it's not worth actually like memorizing a bunch of statistics and then like reciting those statistics in their face. Because even if they acknowledge they're wrong, they're still not going to change their mind. It's about like speaking to needs. It's like a product. It's like marketing and branding gets this. I don't understand why, like in politics, then we like assume better faith when there's any reason to believe. Because like we've all voted, and very few people actually research policy anyway. Most people, even if they're partisan, even if they're on the side of facts and science, are not researching each individual issue and topic, but we're using like heuristics and shortcuts and like a feeling of what we think is trustworthy and best represents and reflects that stuff. Hmm. Let's go back to the news. Ooh. I'm gonna read this. Three takeaways from the new Epstein emails mentioning Trump. This one from CNN. He probably had time to like look into some more detail. Ooh, live now. Okay. Hakeem Jeffries is discussing the shutdown. This live.
When shopping for personal loans, bait and switch rates
I had
can
something.
be
Sorry.
deceiving. You can count on Credit Karma to help you find more accurate rates because Credit Karma uses you to show you real offers with clear terms without hurting your credit scores.
I'm sorry. There's an ad. No one will see Hakeem Jeffries talk. Okay.
No smoke, no mirrors, just personalized rates. Download Intuit Credit Karma to get started.
Rude. Who did he talk? I see. Is this like 20% of this hour-long video? Okay. Let's see what Hakeem Jeffries said. I know that Democratic leadership has a lot of problems. I think Chuck Schumer is the weak and out-of-touch leader. I think Hakeem Jeffries, when he talks, I always think of like a brown bag lunch like you'd have at a school that's like soppy and wet and the bag's about to break. It's not flashy or cool. And the whole time you're like, oh gosh, this is my lunch. Meanwhile, like Kevin over there has like a really cool like lunchbox, with a character. Like, gosh, I wish I had Kevin's lunch. Like that's that's Hakeem Jeffries' vibe. He's not great, but I think he's trying. I don't think he's good at it, but I think he's trying. I think Hakeem Jeffries wishes he was Cory Booker. I don't even necessarily think Cory Booker's great, but Cory Booker like seems to have some charisma in when he's talking. I don't think he knows what to say. He's kind of giving like millennial who's not very like cool. Um, but Cory Booker's like kind of in it. Hakeem Jeffries is like does not have any charisma, but is trying. So I appreciate Hakeem Jeffries over Schumer like a lot. Um, Hakeem Jeffries is trying, and I think he should be encouraged when he's like trying and doing a little bit, and discouraged when he's doing something bad, which is often. Like in terms of Skyrim, Hakeem Jeffries just got his speech up to a 2, and I think he should be applauded for that because he's finally starting to take the hint. This is good. Save healthcare. Good. Save healthcare. Save healthcare is pretty good messaging. Not the best messaging. I think it's putting too much faith in what Americans think of healthcare already. That it's not like a great thing worth saving. Healthcare is not good enough, and I think that needs to kind of be shown and talked about.
Today by Whip
Okay, here we
Catherine
go.
Clark, Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar, members of House Democratic leadership, and the House Democratic Caucus. House Democrats are here on the Capitol steps to reiterate our strong opposition to this spending bill because it fails to address the Republican health care crisis and it fails to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits.
This is the wrong way to give this message. They're describing it in terms of like legislation, and it's like they're clapping because they feel like they should clap. He's not even quite saying the right words. Where's the populist anger? Like, let AOC speak, you know, like we need that kind of. There's like some energy there that's missing. There's an anger at the system.
House Democrats.
Like, it's okay, frankly, to acknowledge that the system is not great and things are not good as is. Like, anti-establishment sentiment is what wins elections, is what gets people in charge. And Democrats now, as a minority party, can feel comfortable saying that. And they get to say that through the 2026 midterms, and then not after as much, because they will control at least the House. But why aren't they taking shots at that? Don't say like, oh, they're the Republicans are stopping this. Be like, hey, we don't even have good health care. But like Republicans won't even let us have that. Do you feel that? Like there's something, they're making it even worse. Like people don't need even worse healthcare right now. We need even better healthcare right now. That's the message.
Will continue to support our men and women in uniform. We will continue to support hardworking federal employees.
Oh, I forget the guy's name, but I love his
We will
name.
continue to support our law enforcement personnel.
Stood up to
House
Trump
Democrats
and then
will continue to support our air
name.
traffic controllers. We will continue to support our
His black
TSA
man is
agents.
brown.
We will
Maybe it's the same
continue to support our civil servants who have been under attack since day one of the Trump administration. But we cannot support the Republican effort to gut the health care of the American people. Today, House Democrats will introduce legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for 3 years, to make sure that tens of millions of Americans don't experience dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles. We believe that working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans deserve the same level of certainty that Republicans always provide to the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected.
This is the weakest possible way I've ever seen someone argue that the rich are bad. It's like just no charisma. It's so bad. It's so bad. But here's my concern. Because conservatives anyway are not going to grant ACA subsidies. That's what the shutdown was about. All the moderates who folded all the establishmentarians who folded. It wasn't even all the moderates. Jeez. All the people who folded and said it's because conservative, like Republicans, the radical Republicans will never grant us the ACA subsidies anyway. So why are they trying to do it like this? Why are they then still swinging for the ACA subsidies in a vote like this? Why not aim higher? This would be a great opportunity to be like, hey, we want Medicare for all. This isn't good enough. They're giving us vote on anything, so we thought, okay, if we could have anything, where do we want healthcare to be? Then put that forward and let Republicans slap that down and say, yeah, like not only in the shutdown, they wouldn't give you the subsidies you had. They would rather starve you than give the subsidies you have. But we're the party who just wants to just give you healthcare. This should be right. You know, if you know this is a ceremonial vote on a ceremonial bill anyway, it's not going to work anyway. And Republicans are already trying to like hang on abortion restrictions anyway, which is messed up. So like it's already a no-go. If you're just going to make a statement, what is the statement you want to make? What is the world you want to make? What is the government you want to make? Aim high. Get caught trying. If you're gonna fail, get caught trying.
Same level of certainty. And so we're calling upon our Republican colleagues to join us and extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. And we will be working hard today, tomorrow, and throughout the balance of this year to make sure that those Affordable Care Act tax credits are extended. Now, Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
The other way to do this is to say, hey, they're never going to do it. We had the shutdown for this. Republicans don't want you to have food or medicine. So fine. We'll see you in 2026. There's nothing we can do now. They made that very clear. They would rather starve you than let you have this. Don't call for the vote at all. But just like set that on Republicans. Be like, hey, they said they wanted to vote, like a vote on this. Then they should offer a vote on this. Why should it be up to us? We're not in power. Like just dump it on them. It's like you're gonna lose, like lean in, just lean into any direction and then just dump it on Republicans. Because that's what this is. They just want healthcare. This should be nonpartisan. But they're making, like, Republicans made this partisan. Just say, okay, and then just dump it on the floor. Like, don't even offer the bill. Just, like, make Republicans do it. It's very clear what it should be. Let Republicans own this. Why do they keep owning this? Why do they keep picking
own
up the
the
ball they
mess
said they
that
don't
has
want?
been created in the United States of America. They own it. In a few hours, we will convene on the House floor. And our message to the American people is no matter what happens on the floor later on today, our promise
I don't watch football.
to you remains the same. House Democrats will continue to fight to make your life more affordable. House Democrats will continue the fight to address the Republican health care crisis. And
This is interesting. He's specifically saying House Democrats. What do you mean you want $35? He's specifying House Democrats. Like we're seeing a break from the Senate here. Very, very deliberately. Which is like speaks of some infighting and is kind of like elbowing. They know they got burned. They're not on the same team anymore.
House Democrats will fight to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. This fight is not over. We're just getting started. We're just getting started. Now, among the many outrageous things that has been said during the Trump Republican shutdown or done during the Trump Republican shutdown, the longest shutdown in American history, is that Donald Trump made the stunning claim that in his mind, he holds two titles, that he has two positions. Donald Trump says that he's both the president and the Speaker of the House. That's what Donald Trump said in the midst of him shutting down the government. And what we've seen from compliant, sycophantic...
Hey, Hey, here's a question. Who is this for? This is something I was always taught in school growing up, and I like reading and writing. I'm pretty good at it. Who is this for? What is their target audience? That's meant to be the first rule, and you should tailor your language and like consider your arguments. Like, this is design, right? Like, who is this for? Who are you making this for? What are you speaking to there? What's it feeling? What is their target audience here? Like, they're just talking to themselves. They're getting in front of microphones, but they're talking to themselves. People who already heard them are like, oh, can you believe this? But they're trying to say, like, blame Republicans for this. But they're not talking to anyone who doesn't already blame Republicans for this. You need some anger. You need some anti-establishmentism. Like, talk to independents here. Talk to Republicans here. I mean, like, look, Republicans ran on affordability. They said they'd give it to you. Your healthcare premiums are going up. We tried to help you. We're sorry. They made very clear they're not going to bend on this. If you want something different, we'll see you in 2026.
Republicans, corrupt House Republicans, is they continue to go along
Yeah, he's not good at drawing
to get
attention.
along. They don't function like a separate and co-equal branch of government. From the very beginning of this presidency and all the way through this Trump.
Also, frankly,
Shut.
he needs a new speechwriter. I'm sure he has people writing his speech for him. Some of his language is all right. It's like the focus tested, but he's saying some of the right things. But the problem is, the things he's saying don't match his energy and his description. To make it like how he's delivering it. If he just wants to be this boring and milk toast, he just needs to focus on making declarative statements like that. Like what is it kind of like, hey, like Democrats voted for this, Republicans didn't vote against this, and like be passive and just like drop it and let it kind of hang. He's just like reading populism in the most unengaging way, and he needs to get on the same page. I don't understand who this is for. This is still not an institution that is on the same page and communicating at all.
Down. Republicans in the House have continued to act like a wholly owned subsidiary of the corrupt Trump cartel. That may be
A subsidiary of the cartel? Like, get your language on the same page, right? If it's, you could spin the Republicans as like a corrupt cartel of criminals. Or you could say like, this is his next business, and then appeal to that like anti-corporate hate, which might be a good angle. Like, but a subsidiary of a cartel? What are you talking about? They're like mixing all of their metaphors and language. What's the story they're trying to tell America? They should pick one and they should do it.
Position. Because we know, and what we say to the American people is that we don't work for Donald Trump. We don't work for J.D. Vance. We don't work for your billionaire donors. We work for the American people. And that's what this fight by House Democrats, joined by our colleagues on the other side of the Capitol, has been all about. We work for the American people. As we stand on the Capitol steps, ready to continue this battle on the House floor, a battle that we waged week after week after week, and that will continue regardless of the outcome. We say to the American people that we know you deserve better. You deserve much better than the chaos, the cruelty, and the corruption that you've seen.
Here we see another messaging failure, and it's subtle, but we say to the American people, you deserve better. Why are they opening with like, we say to the American people? That means you're describing to your target audience what you would say to the American people. Just say you deserve better, right? Like talk to camera, talk to the people. They're talking to someone else about the American people. That's the constant problem we see with like the communication and thinking of these establishment Democrats. You're like, oh, the constituents don't want that, and like instead of just talking to people. And that's why they seem to keep missing the mark on who their target audience actually is in their policies too, and folding them the shutdown. They talk about, they don't talk to. And this is like the night and day difference. Even Donald Trump knows how to like talk to people. And Donald Trump's weak points are when he then talks about people. He doesn't understand with affordability, but when he speaks to people's actual feelings and concerns directly, that resonates and that wins. AOC is phenomenal at this. I think AOC could run for president. There's a danger there because I don't know if people would like write her off on the basis of her gender or ethnicity. unfortunately, and that like biases a lot of the ways they hear what you're saying. But AOC says it right.
And so as House Democrats, we're going to continue this fight to lower the high cost of living. In a country where America is far too expensive, far too many people struggling to live paycheck to paycheck, can't thrive, and can barely survive. That should not be the case in the United States of America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And so as Democrats, we're committed to addressing this affordability crisis. That's what this fight has been all about. And we'll continue to work hard to lower the high cost of living. We'll continue the fight to fix our broken healthcare system. And we'll continue to fight to stand up for Medicaid. We'll continue to fight to stand up for Medicare. We'll continue the fight to stand up for the Affordable Care Act and an extension of the tax credits. We'll continue to fight for...
We're seeing the weakness here too, and they're repeating this a lot, which is a problem because they're framing this like it's their strong point. Like, we will continue to fight to stand up for Medicare. Do you see that it's like a hat on a hat? Like they're just putting all these little like weakeners in. Just like you say, we're fighting for Medicare. We'll continue to fight to stand up for what? Why are you getting in the way of yourself? Or better yet, even though we're fighting for Medicare, Republicans, the radical right, like the radical Republicans are fighting against your health care. The radical Republicans will starve you to stop you from getting health care. Active voice, active voice. Who writes this?
For your hospitals. We'll continue to fight for your nursing homes. We'll continue to fight for your community-based health clinics, and we'll continue to fight for the principle that in this great country, the wealthiest country in the history of the world,
we'll continue to stand up to fight for it. Stop it. Just do the thing.
Healthcare can't simply be a privilege available only to the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. Healthcare must be a right available to every single American. And that's the fight that House Democrats will continue to wage for the American people.
We'll continue to wage, to fight, to stand up for. Okay,
it's now my great honor to yield to a freshman leadership representative.
And it can't only be a privilege for the wealthy and like no, just matter of fact. Matter of fact. You deserve health care. Healthy Americans are strong Americans. We want to work hard. We can't work hard if we're sick and injured and can't get back up on our feet. Connected to the underlying values. We can't vote with our dollar if it's all going to health insurance companies. These fundamental, like, underlying things. We just need healthcare. It's just a means to an end. Healthcare isn't itself actually a virtue or a right. Like, healthcare isn't any of those things. It's not even like an amendment. It's just a right. But the point is that not having healthcare should get in the way of you leading your life and using your rights and doing good things and working hard. Not having healthcare gets in the way. It's not about healthcare. And like, I think I resonate with this a lot because like I had disabilities, visible and invisible. So I have a cane. I needed to get around sometimes. It hurts to get around even in the winter. I have like a lung disease, but I cough sometimes. I don't identify with my disease. I don't want to go to like a conference about my disease. That's not who I am as a person. Ideally, when I have medical issues, I want them to be solved and get out of my way. People don't identify with their medical issues. They want them out of their way. Like they're obstacles to being yourself. It's not who you are. And I want to see that here. It's not that healthcare is a right. Health is a right. We can guarantee a good quality of life for every American. And Republicans are putting a price gate in front of that. It's a small difference in framing, but it's a big difference in framing. I don't know why that's hard. It's not supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be. And we know it can be done. Every other country does. Are we going to let every other country be better than us? We're America. We're supposed to be number one. American exceptionalism should play into this. We should have the best education. We should have the best healthcare. There's no reason not to. We need healthy, educated Americans because we need the best people in the world. And that's what you have to do to get that. It's a cost anyone should be eager to pay. People can't afford it. The government can. We should do it right.
Someone who's gotten off to a great start, helping to lead the freshman class, the first term members during this turbulent and tumultuous period here in the United States Congress and for the country. From the great state of California, the Honorable Luz Rivas.
In California, okay, so it's going to be a little more
Leader
attached.
Jeffries, Whip Clark, and Chair Aguilar for your leadership. House Democrats are back in Washington, D.C., ready to vote once again to protect health care for working families across the country. Recently, I spoke with Speaker Johnson directly in the Capitol and hand-delivered stories.
One thing I don't understand is this like obsession with using like working families. Let's talk about families. I think working works because I think hard work is deeply seated as an American value. But not everyone has a family, and it already there feels like once again they're picking for like middle class 30s, like their own lives. There are some young people too who are just like in college or like, you know, just getting a job and are alone. There are older people who are alone and couldn't have a family. I don't understand this obsession with family specifically. I think like working Americans and appealing to patriotism would be a stronger cutting bipartisan unifier. An American as an identity is very individualistic and very passionate and very channelable for anger and pride, like in positive and in negative. I think that'd be really good. Like we're Americans, damn it. We get better. We should have better. We should deserve better. But that American exceptionalism and that almost kind of greed entitlement works in their favor here. I don't understand why we're afraid of patriotism. No one should be afraid of like patriotism. It's free. Claim it. Make this an American issue. And that cuts into conservative feelings and vibes and branding too.
From my and my fellow freshman colleagues, constituents who have been impacted by the Republican shutdown. This includes the story of Stephen Heller, a constituent from Van Nuys, which is in my district. Stephen and his wife are independent contractors who have to pay for their own health insurance. Because Republicans let the ACA tax credits expire, Stephen and his wife are facing a monthly health care premium increase of $1,000 per month in 2026. This will bring their monthly total to nearly $2,100 per month and nearly $25,000 for the year.
Hey, this is bad. This is really bad. I know this sounds like a hot take. It sounds like a person's story whenever it's relatable. Who are they talking to? We're not educating aliens on what American healthcare is. We're talking to Americans about their own healthcare. They should be using second person you language. Your healthcare is going to get more expensive. This isn't a surprise. This doesn't need to be a new thing. Just say you. Like, your healthcare is going to get more expensive. You already know how hard it is. Does it need to be harder? Everyone can then just understand and reflect on their own situation and use their own imagination. And it's different for different people. This one anecdote is not going to apply to everyone, no matter who they are, how well off or not well off they are. This is where it needs to be at. You know how bad it is. You don't need to give an anecdote. People don't need a story on this. Everyone has their own story. And this is like a power that the right understands. When Donald Trump says, make America great again, it's all implied, and you can fill in the blanks and read into the tea leaves whatever you would like from that. That is how horoscopes work. They're meant to be like, powerful messages about core themes about like relationships and success and failure and which direction you want to go in a way where like any person can look at that and then get some value out of that and then personally interpret that. We do not need one specific concrete grounded anecdote about one man and his wife who are like independent contractors and have their own thing going on. And frankly, if you are worse off than this couple who already, a man and his wife who are independent contractors, probably have some stability there and some mobility there, it's offensive and it feels distant. You're talking about someone else, you're not talking about you.
health insurance. That is, in Stephen's own words, a terrible financial blow and an enormous financial burden. Constituents across the country like Stephen and his wife cannot afford Republicans' deal. I will vote no and continue to fight with House Democrats to protect the ACA subsidies that Stephen and millions of Americans rely on. House Democrats will continue our fight to protect health care, lower the cost of living, and keep the American dream attainable for all.
It's also, this is an argument relying on empathy, too. You're describing some other person not expecting you to care. Here's a question. Donald Trump, for all of his populism and rising support among the working class, has he ever used an anecdote like this? Has he ever talked about, like, you know, hey, I hear you, I see you. I'm going to talk about one specific person right now. He doesn't, right? He'll just say you, talk about, like, Americans in general, and, like, assume, you know, you are that, and you can fill that in. You don't need to be told what someone else's life is like. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think that works. Yeah, it's just bad. It's just bad. I don't know. I want to replace their communications team.
Thank you. And next, I'd like to introduce my amazing colleague from Michigan, Congresswoman McDonald Rivet.
Also, here's a point too. We live in an attention economy, memetics world. This is a memetics chess game. Why do we need all these different speakers to say the same thing? What are they doing here? What are they gaining here? Who's this for? What is the added value? Wouldn't it be better to have like one main character, like strongly centered, and then one direct message and soundbite in question? The more they do here, like more is less.
Thank you very much. I come from mid-Michigan, the part of the country where workers actually invented the American dream, to work hard enough to pay your bills, put a little bit away, and take your kids on vacation every once in a while. But the dream is further and further out of reach. In my district, 70% of our jobs pay less than $60,000 a year. So this healthcare crisis that Republicans have created, $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts and gutting the ACA in order to pay for the tax break for the ultra wealthy, is making things so much harder.
The way even now they're describing like, hey, here's what people make in my state. It feels like you're talking to people who don't know this already, rather than talking to the people who live this already. And that's who you should be talking to, because those are the people who see this and will go, yeah, and then they'll get pissed, and then they will contact their own representative, and then they become like on the ground, like activated, you know, your fans, your like volunteers. You want the people to do this. Like speak to the people who can then raise hell on your behalf for you. Who is this for? They're talking about American people. To whom?
So let me give you an example.
To Republicans? I don't understand. I really don't understand.
A couple in my district, they actually go to my church, called and told me they're in their 60s and they rely on the ACA tax credits to pay their insurance premiums. But now, because the Republicans have failed to extend these credits, their insurance premiums are going to jump by $11,000 next year. An impossible sum for people on the edge of retirement. Health insurance already consumes 72% of their retirement income. Let me say that again. 72% of their retirement income, and is about to go up another $11,000. That means
speaking to retirement income at all feels out of touch and offensive to working class and younger people, for whom even middle class people, retirement is not a feasible or realistic or a high priority investment. Yeah, like exactly. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it feels disingenuous. Like they get to claim we see you without doing anything. Yeah, like they're sort of like, see, like we know about this. They're like reciting facts about how this will affect people in a way that feels like they just learned this, or like they're trying to prove they know this to people. But like, who are they proving it to? Are we winning yet? No, we're not winning yet. I'll let you know when we're winning. We're gonna win in 2026. Okay.
They're facing devastating choices between doctor's visits and paying the mortgage, between cancer screenings and putting food on the table, between prescription drugs and heating their home.
Yeah, it feels like they're trying to talk about American people to prove to American people, look, we know what's going on, which is bad, which is bad. I feel like they're doing a book report on your life.
Or even, frankly, to get in.
I'm picking on them because they're on my side because I care and they should care. And you know, I don't know. This is good faith. See, like, I want better to happen.
Insurance at all. They told me, and this is a direct quote, they are strongly considering going without coverage and taking their chances rather than continuing to pay the premium. Because here's the reality. They actually can't pay that premium. I came to Congress, we all came to Congress to help people like them. Lower cost, better.
Yeah, no, people need that extra money. I know a lot of people, like a lot of like, I'm like late millennial, early Gen Z, kind of how you cut it. Little treat culture is encouraged. Like little treat, like, oh, should you buy a little treat? You know, like the news articles, like, oh, don't spend $5 on avocado toast or whatever. I know a lot of people in my generation who are like, I could put aside this money for long-term savings or like retirement or whatever, or I could get like a boba, and they will just get like a boba tea because they realize it's not on track to add up to a house. It's not on track to add up to a retirement. Even if they did build up to retirement, they assume prices are going to go up in the future, and then that will no longer be feasible for retirement. And then prices will go up as well, and then they can't spend that money on as much anyway. So it's being considered, and I don't think this is necessarily good. It's dangerous, but this is like where people are at. It is better to just buy a little treat now because even if you put away this money, it will only be good for a little treat in the future, and you can get fewer little treats with this money. That is terrifying. That is a bad place to be. That's the state of things right now. There's just a shattered faith, not only in the American dream, but as retirement as a concept.
More care, more jobs. One easy critical step is simply passing to extend the ACA credits. Yes. It is time we pass it before they pay the cost. Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce my colleague from California, Representative Tran.
Good afternoon. I am Congressman Derek Tran, and I proudly represent Orange and LA counties in California's 45th district. Today, I want to share the story of Peter and Esther. Peter and Esther are retired and living in Orange County, California. They're on a limited income.
Why are we going with the
and their
book report?
Health insurance costs are overwhelming.
Who's this
they
for?
pay over $18,000 every year just in health care premiums.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Their costs are going up to over $21,000. When you're retired and living on a fixed income, that kind of cost increase can be devastating. Peter has been trying to get his wife Esther on Medicaid so she can get the care she deserves without going bankrupt. But he keeps hitting roadblocks. The red tape, long.
Yeah, there's more sob stories here. It's just this general approach of like, it feels like a book report. Like they're describing, they know what's going on with the American people to prove that, which still feels offensive and not like they're talking to the American people. It's bad. It is rough.
Lines and staffing shortages preventing Esther from even being considered for Medicaid coverage is harmful to our country. And instead of joining us to fix this crisis, the Republican majority has demanded more cuts, causing more pain and suffering for the American people. I am here today for people like Peter and Esther. They deserve better than this. Every American deserves better than this. While we're fighting for health care, Republicans are fighting for tax cuts for the billionaires. I'll keep fighting to make sure people like Peter and Esther can afford the care that they deserve. And I hope our colleagues on the other side of the aisle will join us. Thank you so much. It is with great privilege that I introduce and yield time to Congresswoman Sarah McBride from the great state of Delaware.
Yeah, AOC and Jasmine Crockett are the model. Yeah. Yeah, people turn to oh gosh. They're calling him the one trans representative, and he's like, Congress woman. He actually did like the point up in the air. Oh my God.
Word.
That is so like weird.
Thank you so much, Representative. Thank you so much, Leader Jeffries, Whip Clark, and Chair Aguilar for bringing us together today.
Microaggression.
We stand here today, 42 days into a government shutdown and 54 days since the House last met, because Republicans have presented.
Already? She's like a stronger speaker, though. Like, can you see if she's actually speaking out to the crowd instead of like
between reopening government and addressing this healthcare crisis?
Yes, that right there. Yeah. For me, like, this is a clear like A or B choice. She's using more direct language, less beating around the bush. She's more in touch with it. I like her a lot. She's like really good and like kind of in touch communicator. And she's been through hell that she did not deserve.
There is simply no reason why we can't do both. The only thing that has been standing in our way is Republican cruelty. Republicans have.
Yes. See, she's providing like a model, right? Like in your head, if you picture, how are you structuring these nebulous topics? What's going on? And people don't think in terms of facts. And there are people, citing like whether it's anecdotes or statistics or numbers, it's useless. People think in terms of experience and space, which makes sense. You think of cavemen, right? You think of how you remember the world. And if you actually want to be really good at like memorizing stuff, you use concepts like memory palaces, where you envision like a place or you can make up, but it's just fun. But like usually a place like your childhood home, and then you put all the stuff you want to remember into that space in different rooms, and then you want to come up with a path you would like walk through that space like in order. So you're like using space and time to organize information you want to remember, and that increases how well you remember it. What she is doing here successfully is she's positioning like, hey, this is what we want to do, this is where we want to go, which provides directionality and a goal, and then the only thing standing in the way is Republican cruelty. Do you see how she's organizing things? It's like how you would experience the world. There's like a problem to solve. We need to get from point A to point B, and then there's this wall in the way. That's effective. That like makes sense in your brain. There's an orientation to it. This is effective communication. This is why populism works, because you always frame it as like us versus them, like you have an enemy. It is effective communication. I don't like playing fast and loose with like the facts and the that. I think you get out of hand real fast. I think there's real danger of that today. But this is how you do it right. Problem solution.
Played a game of chicken with food assistance, travel safety, and federal paychecks, all because they will stop at nothing to cut your health care. The only thing that congressional Republicans are more loyal to than Donald Trump is to cutting the health care of the American people. Let's be clear.
Yeah. See, I don't want that to happen. That's bad. That's a problem. There's a person doing a bad thing. And she's not even saying, like, we're going to continue to fight. She's created the conditions under which, like, you're motivated to fight. Under which you are motivated to fight. To help them fight. This is clearly a fight we need to have. It's descriptive about the fight, but there's a stronger call to action in solving it that's put upon all of us together. And people are like, yeah, in the crowd, right? Like I just did. We get that. It's resonating. And this is what Donald Trump does too. Like this is how sales works. This is how marketing works. Problem, solution. And you can start implying the solution by the time you offer the solution. You're like, oh, thank God, I needed this exact thing anyway. And that's what she's doing here. This is effective communication. This is like part of this, like our Democrats in touch thing isn't necessarily we need to change our policy. We need to be like 3% more conservative on immigration policy. It's this. It's this. It's in the communication level.
This healthcare crisis is a choice by congressional Republicans and Donald Trump, who have inserted a $1 trillion bomb into the American healthcare system. And it is starting to go off. Millions right now are facing skyrocketing premiums. The largest cut to Medicaid in American history is on the horizon. Rural hospitals will close. Doctors' offices will shutter. Donald Trump loves to own things and slap his name on them. Well, he now owns the American healthcare system. It is Trump care. Millions losing coverage.
That is great. Yes. Donald Trump owns what has become of the American healthcare system and call this Trump care, that is great. Donald Trump is always so close to like personally owning things, and he's distanced himself here. Call this Trump care. Every atrocity in the healthcare system we have, this is what Trump care is. That's good. That's good. It's clear. It's associating like words and concepts, and it's like easy to follow, and it's correct. She's correct.
That's Trump care. Americans paying more for insurance, that's Trump care. Everyone having to drive longer and take more time off work, that is Trump care. Donald Trump and congressional Republicans have raided your health care and used that money as a piggy bank to reward their donors with massive tax breaks. Cruelty is the currency of his corruption. Because
fuck that. That's my piggy bank. Yeah, she's right. What are we gonna do about it? Right? That using she did what I just said to do before this she started speaking. She's using that you language. She's talking to us. And now I feel like I'm responding with we. That's smart. That's how you do it. I'm like, yeah, what are we gonna do about this? Because she's on my side. She's not trying to pass a book report. Yeah, she's not trying to pass a book report that she like understands what American people are going through. She's just talking about a thing we all already know.
Donald Trump only cares about himself, his ballroom, and his billionaire buddies. And he certainly doesn't care about you. House Democrats are here for everyone, whether they voted for us in the last election or not. I'm here on behalf of all of my constituents, including a family of 4 in Middletown who will see their premiums skyrocket by $10,000 next year. That's why we are all voting.
Here also, she's using like an example to support the point rather than to make the point, which is good as well. Like that's just an example. She's like, oh, this is just one of many, and yeah, I get the point already. She's not trying to prove she knows something by reciting facts. She's an effective communicator. She's here for everybody, regardless of how they vote. That's good. This is the right lesson. She gets it. She gets it.
Against this budget. And it's why we will not stop until every single American can get the health care that they need to live and thrive in America. Thank you all very much. And it is now...
Yeah.
It is now my pleasure to introduce my friend from the great state of Alabama, Representative Shamari Figures.
I really liked her speech. Another like good small thing she did is she did use some phrases and terminology that wasn't focus group tested, but it was effective. She used like alliteration and stuff. Like ballrooms and billionaire buddies. Those are like the little things. Like this is just, one grain of salt that makes things a little more memorable, a little more effective. She's understanding like the basics of communication literacy, and it's good to see. Excuse me.
Thank you. House Democrats just spent the better part of the last 40+ days fighting to keep health care affordable for millions of Americans, while our House Republican colleagues were on a taxpayer-funded vacation. During this shutdown, the realities hit home for a lot of people. Mothers had to worry about how they would take care of their children, their babies without WIC. Families stood in pantry lines. Families are still standing in food pantry lines. In the month of November, the month of Thanksgiving, because SNAP benefits were expired, and this administration chose to use them as pawns in this game. Capitol Police officers, members of the military, my staff, all of our staff, and millions of other federal workers had to deal with the uncertainty and the stresses of missing paychecks. And for what in the end? What were Republicans willing to give in the end? Nothing more than a handshake deal to take a future vote on extending the health care subsidies.
This is interesting too, because there's clearly some tension brewing among the Democrats here. This is equally a slight against Republicans. That's what they're saying in name, but it's also a slight against these Senate Democrats who folded. Chuck Schumer needs to step down. There's clearly a lot of people going for his throat.
When we all know that that future vote is the equivalent of asking 2 wolves and a chicken to vote on what's for dinner. It is dead on arrival. It is dead on arrival. Now, I can speak to you as someone from a different perspective. A lot of us represent districts where we can talk about what could happen or what may happen. Let me tell you about what my district looks like in the state of Alabama. And it doesn't look too dissimilar from my fellow colleague from Alabama, Congresswoman Terry Sewell's district. I got about 50,000 people in my district who are slated to see their health care premiums on average nearly double. And this is in a district where the individual median income is just north of $32,000. I have 13 counties in my district. 10 of them either do not have a hospital because it has recently closed, or their hospital is on literal life support and they have to go to a county commission or a city council every single month to make payroll. And the largest hospital in Montgomery, Alabama, the state's capital, is in the midst of a bankruptcy and also facing risk of closure.
Yeah, people just don't get it until it's a bank account. Yeah. Yeah, the Senate folded again. The Senate is weak. The Senate needs new leadership. Like Hakeem Jeffries, I don't think he's the strongest leader, but he's met the minimum bar that Schumer has failed repeatedly and still does nothing to understand how or why. Yeah, and this like needs to be personal. I get that the vote is going to fail. If the vote fails, the bigger game here, right? And with any big significant change can happen, really, are the midterms in 2026. Really. Any move done now, I get it, people are hurting. Like, there's not much Democrats can do to alleviate that suffering. And they should make that known, first of all. Like, we can't help right now. But it should be about maximizing their political capital for the midterms. Stick everything to Republicans they can. Get people mad, rally the troops. I think that's why like the shutdown is a good thing, right? Like there is no immediate solution, but it was a good idea as far as like people want to see, give me a reason to vote for you and support you. Like I'll fight for you if you fight for me, prove that you're fighting for me. And they were, and that was a good momentum. Like it was working in that respect. The goal wasn't realistically the ACA subsidies. And people were like, well, we're going to get the ACA subsidies. There's no point. So we're just going to bomb the PR and the messaging. The point is that caused a total deflation of like momentum and support. And now it's like, once again, we're back to it's on everybody to like apologize for them rather than like follow their lead. And that's heartbreaking because that to me, we just lost a lot of like volunteers and door knockers and canvassers. And I hope we get them back. But like, it basically punished the people who were paying attention for supporting them. And it means that all of the working class people who needed core support were punished for nothing. But then as soon as it affected airplane companies and like rich middle class people and like federal workers, then they cared. And that's a cruel, cruel burn that will take a lot of, it's increased the trust deficit instead of reducing it. There are two possibilities. Either Chuck Schumer was unaware and this happened behind his back, maybe vaguely with this blessing, but he really didn't know, which would explain why the messaging was so messy because he didn't like have a plan together. Or he did know and he did orchestrate it. So it's either like actively bad strategy on his part, or he's like neglected to fulfill his basic job duties. Either of which is a big, big, big problem. Like either way, he's a failed leader. You look at this as any other team, as any company. Like he's a project manager at a private company. This would be a dereliction of duty. That was like just a vote of no confidence immediately. Like wipe the floor. And people have drawn parallels to like sports teams. Like when you have a sports team who just like fumble the news bad, like they fire coaches. Like you don't want this leadership. You need better leadership. Even if it was just kind of a fluke, even frankly, when you have better options to choose from, and any option is a better option at this point, it helps morale by like being able to scapegoat the morale loss on this person and then give people hope again and then play back into the narrative of like, okay, bad things happen, but we're changing things and there's hope and there's like new leadership and new voices and that becomes narrative again. And you give people like, hey, like a reason to give us another chance to keep trying is because it's going to be different. It's a fresh, we can't just assume, oh, it's bad and it's going to stay bad, and that's like we're just stuck on that. And that's why the messaging was so bad. There was not an exit strategy, even like PR and messaging wise, which means the actual fight this was about, which was building up an investment of like voter-based trust and energy and momentum and passion, has immediately like flipped into distrust and wariness. Yeah.
In a state that has the third lowest life expectancy in the United States of America. So healthcare for us is not a talking point. Healthcare for us is, protecting healthcare for us is a requisite. It's a requirement. It's something we have to do. And if you ask us if the shutdown was worth it, I say, hell yes, it was worth it. Because fighting to maintain healthcare for American people, there's nothing more pure than that. There's no more important role that we have here as members of Congress than to ensure the health care of the American people.
You can tell these speeches are bad and the goals are unclear and pointless when they don't even know when to clap and when he's done.
Failure of Republicans to do anything to protect health care is truly disappointing. I want the world to know that my Democratic colleagues here in the House, they can ride with me in any battle I face in my life. They stood with us under the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries.
This guy, I think, is primarily pissed at the Senate Democrats. He's not doing a good job explaining the stakes of the issue to outsiders, per se, but he's taking lots of shots at Senate Democrats implicitly. You know, yeah, like my house, like, you know, my friends in the House Democrats, I could trust fully. Yeah, he knows what's going on. He's probably really pissed behind the scenes. A lot of people are.
To make sure that we kept this front and center. And I look forward to remaining committed to this fight for all of Alabama and for all of America. And with that, turn it back over to our leader, future Speaker Jeffries.
I want to thank all of our distinguished colleagues who spoke so powerfully and eloquently about the nature of this fight.
Well, he didn't all speak powerfully and eloquently, but I appreciate that.
On behalf of the American people. And these are first-term members of Congress. But they recognize that as Democrats, we stand on the shoulders of many who, decade after decade, century into century, have always fought to make life better for everyday Americans.
There's also a macro message here, which I think is a little hidden, but maybe important. All of the people who spoke were like junior, like first term, like young recruits to this party and movement. What he's doing here, Jeffries, I don't like him very much, but like he's, you know, doing his part and like respecting his role as a leader. He's giving space to the newer, younger generations and giving them a voice and a platform. And he's like clearly signaling a narrative like we should uplift and support like the voices of the future. And that's even what this message is about here. This is not a shot at the Republican government. Maybe that is the actual target audience of this. It's describing how bad things are and like what the American people want. I think they're talking to the Senate Democrats through this event, through the speech. That seems to be what I'm picking up on here. And this message that, hey, we need to support the younger voices who can speak powerfully on this and like who care and prep them for the future of leadership feels like a direct shot at Schumer, that the Senate needs to be doing the same and clearly is falling behind. The Senate Democrats are a gerontocracy. Several of the people who supported them, you know, the eight scabs are like retiring. A lot of them are very old. And they're the ones who are like speaking on this, and they're just like fumbling it all. It's baffling.
And to protect the health care and enhance the health care of the American people. That's the continuing and enduring legacy.
It's not even about healthcare, it's about health. Healthcare is an obvious necessary means to the end. That's why it's so important.
Of the Democratic Party. FDR fought for it. Truman fought for it. JFK fought for it. LBJ fought for it. Carter fought for it. Clinton fought for it. Barack Obama fought for it. Biden fought for it. And no one fought harder in the House of Representatives than our Speaker Emerita, Nancy D'Alessandro Pelosi. That's in the DNA.
The more I learn about Nancy Pelosi, the more I actually like her. Hear me out. She's a good leader. And one of the things she did, even when there were hard fights or things that weren't going to go well, one of her rules was she said to everyone, it's okay to make me the bad guy and hate on me if you have to score points in your district or to get the bigger fights done. She let herself be the scapegoat. While Schumer is hiding and pretending this wasn't on him, when it just feels like, okay, his, you know, the blood is on his hands and he's like hiding and lying about that and thinking like he's slick and thinking everyone else is stupid. Nancy Pelosi openly would like stand out and like, mock him with the clapping and stuff. She let herself be a big target to soak the heat for her team. That's good leadership. That's like kind of strong leadership in a way. There is something respectable about that. And overall, Nancy Pelosi is actually super effective. She's gotten a lot done. She's able to keep a coalition together without these bumps in the road. Like, compare her to someone like Schumer. Nancy Pelosi did some stuff. The fact that she has like some hate built up on her over time, that's kind of a good sign. And she let that happen and didn't let those aesthetics affect her actual functioning. Not every leader needs to be like the good voice and the speaker, right? I think like someone like in the Senate, Bernie Sanders shouldn't be in charge of the Senate Democrats. You want some people to just be like a strong messenger and ideologue. And you kind of want the leader to be like their focus is the behind the scenes work of pulling together. You don't want them to be divisive, but get everyone on board. And Nancy Pelosi made sure everyone was on board at any cost. I think it's important. And even right now, she read the room. Nancy Pelosi stepped down as leader because we realized the optics were like starting to like be more weight than the game and would weigh things down. And she's up against, now like in this regime, misogynistic leadership who would hate on her and center her. She knew to duck out of the way. That's smart. She's smart.
Democratic Party.
Good for her. Schumer should follow her lead.
From FDR to Nancy Pelosi to these first-term members. And so our promise to the American people is that we are in this fight until we win this fight for all of you. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.
I also think it's wise of Nancy Pelosi to she's still in office this term, but she has purposely like gotten a lower profile, right? You might not know like if she's still there or not. She's still there. She's not in charge anymore, and she's like riding on a term like to just in case. I'm sure if Hakeem Jeffries or whoever else had trouble getting everyone on board, she's there. Like I'm sure to consult if they ever needed to. She's not like fully just dipping and leaving new leadership to like figure everything out. And I like that. I respect it. I think it's like leads to a strong passage of the torch. I think there's something good to that. There's something respectful about that. Chuck Schumer should really follow her lead. And where Chuck Schumer like is just not gonna bother. If Chuck Schumer does not run for another term, he's up for re-election in 2028. I think he's just gonna go down, like he's gonna take it all down with him. There's no infrastructure, there's no succession plan. That's very obvious. Even though now people are calling on Chuck Schumer to resign, who is the heir apparent? How does that work? Like, do we have any idea? Democrats run, especially the Senate Democrats, not on necessarily who's best for the job, but this idea of like it's your turn because you've been there the longest, like the seniority rule. Who's next? What's after? Who's in charge right now? Is it Chuck Schumer? He's not doing a very good job. I've seen Ro Khanna, who's in like the House of Representatives, making stronger calls to action for Schumer to resign than any senator has, and that's a problem. Well, I thank you for watching that with me. I am going to stop the stream for a little bit and take a break and eat some food. And in about like half an hour at 4, I'm going to stream again, and then we'll see if there is in fact actually the swearing in of the new representative, who will be the 218th person to sign the discharge petition to force a vote on the release of the Epstein files. So thanks for hanging out.